Oh boy. All right. Let's see here. Oh boy. All right. Let me take a look-see real quick. Promote. Okay. I think we're all set. Just gotta make my drinks, set up my ears, count down T-minus 12 minutes. Okay. All right. So far, so good. And get my drinks and shit set up real quick. Who's there? Okay.
But you chose, you said you were asked a question, which is fair enough, but you chose those words.
This is gonna be such a blast. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Jesus. All right. This is why I need 2 monitors. Oh, I know. In due time, when I get a better setup. Okay. Set up my ears. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, right. $2024. Ain't got much.
We are strong when we stand
Here we
together.
go.
We're full of
All right.
grit. We're full of determination. We are full of fire, oh God.
Determination.
And when we link arms and we walk forward together, nothing can stop us if we are unified. I pray for our candidates tonight. I hope that we have
they're
a
doing a
vigorous
prayer,
debate
an
full of
opening
ideas
prayer.
and suggestions to help our American people. All American people from the East Coast
All
to the
right.
West Coast and everywhere in between,
Okay.
oh God. And we pray for Hawaii,
Looking good.
for the citizens of the great state of Hawaii, for those who lost their lives, and for those who will not know another tomorrow through the fire and the devastation. And we pray for the children, oh God, the school children. Let us please have a
Sounds
moment
so
of
inauthentic.
silence
Oh
for
no.
the great state of Hawaii.
Oh God.
These are our prayers, O Lord, and we lift them on high. For you're a merciful God. We know you hear us, and only you can deliver. Thank you. In God's name we pray.
Excellent.
Amen.
Ladies and
The
gentlemen,
prayer. They'll do a
please
pledge and an anthem. We're going to stay on this here. No disrespect
5 minutes.
to the pledge or the anthem. They're covering it on the channel.
You know,
We'll make
I'm
sure they
actually
do. Please
honestly
check it out
shocked
as they
that
do as well.
Tulsi
Tammy,
Gabbard
just 'cause we only have a
never
moment here,
actually
your
announced her
thoughts,
candidacy.
with just 5 minutes to go till this thing's underway.
Well, you know, somebody who's not really discussed very much is Nikki Haley. She is one other person who has national experience, intense national experience, working with Donald Trump. She's made her way and as a governor of a state. So she's had an expansive set of experiences. I think you're going to see her, much like in a way Carly Fiorina kind of broke out in the debate pack as a surprise in 2016, is that we still are looking at women a little bit differently when it comes to expectations. But she has a huge opportunity here. I think she knows how to use it. Watch for her. And I think we're going to have a great night when it comes to all of them. Two of them, I don't know why they think they would ever get to be president.
Yeah,
that being,
that's true.
frankly, Pence and Chris Christie.
like,
so you have to
you
wonder
mean-
about
you
what
mean
the
all of
agenda
them?
is. But with most of them up there, the
Why
agenda is the
why
country.
do any of them
and I
think
look forward to
that
getting
they
to
have
know
a
all
chance
of them
of being
better.
president?
I think, Sean, no opening statements here, so it's not as if they're having to think through what they're going to say right away. They're going to get fired at with a question and answer. Do you think that maybe allows them to be a little bit more fluid to start? I think you made such an experienced point that the people that can get comfortable, like a quarterback in the Super Bowl, the soonest have an opportunity to seize on a moment. And, what are they thinking about at the podium right now?
Yeah, I think they're going through all the notes, and hopefully they didn't memorize the lines, but they have the ideas of where they want to go in the conversation, what they want to bring to the American people through the debate, not memorize, but authentically deliver it. But make no mistake, as we mentioned, they are incredibly nervous at this point. You know, what I want to see today? I want to see sparkle. I want to see razzle and dazzle
Razzle
on the
and
stage,
dazzle, huh?
and to package the future of my country with some sparkle and energy,
Promoting,
and maybe some new
promoting,
ideas.
promoting.
That's what I want to see tonight from these candidates. And those who do that, I think, again, will make an impact. This is not boring any longer. Trump has completely shattered the way we view these debates and the presidency.
Absolutely.
And that's what we want to see as voters tonight.
So we've only got about 2 minutes. I'm going to go back to you each in a second for who you're buying and who you're selling. The one name you'd buy right now before this debate and the one name you'd sell. But I want to remind our viewers, you can keep watching the debate right here on
2
Fox
minutes.
Nation. You can also watch it on Fox News.
You got a
And a
free trial
reminder,
just to watch
during the
this shit.
commercial breaks, pull up the Fox Nation app, pull it up on your TV. We're going to have, the four of us are going to have an instant analysis on Fox Nation during the commercial break. You know what? It just feels wrong, guys. The national anthem's in the background. We're going to let it flow here, and then we're going to come back.
Why are we doing the national anthem before a debate? It's like a sport. They think it's a sport. I mean, even before a sport, it's kind of just strange, but like.
Through the night, that our flag was still there. I'll say, does that star-spangled
Oh God.
banner yet wave?
She got
For the
great vibrato.
land of the free and the home of the brave.
Nailed it.
The three of you, we got 5 seconds. Who you buying, who you selling, and we'll check the tape afterwards. Will.
Buy Ramaswamy, sell Pence.
So I buy Ramaswamy.
All right, Tammy?
Oh, I was going to. Go ahead, Tammy.
Oh, no, buy Nikki Haley, sell Mike Pence.
Okay.
I buy Ramaswamy and I sell Pence and Haley and I push on DeSantis.
Oh, that's cheating.
Interesting. He took up. That is cheating. You get your first answer. Let's see. So
Yeah,
the
no,
debate
they really
begins
want
now.
Ramaswamy.
I'll see you guys in the commercial break.
Like,
How about that?
he's
And we'll give
charismatic
our best
and
instant
he's young
analysis
and
after
energetic,
the debate wraps up in
but,
the first segment. Here we go. Over to Brett and Martha for the Fox News Republican primary debate.
I don't know. Very politician-y, very inauthentic, kind of a dumbass, also kind of a hypocrite. I mean, what do you expect? He's a Republican.
Some call it the heartland. Others flyover country. But for the 2024 presidential hopefuls,
Milwaukee.
the Midwest is the place to land.
Literally none of these
Here there
people
is
are
one
hopefuls.
battleground that may be harder to win than ever. Wisconsin,
Trump should be here.
a state known for its beer and cheese.
What a coward. But
gridiron
he
and
knows
grit,
Chris Christie's going to destroy
and
his
also
ass.
its razors.
He doesn't
and
want.
elections.
I also don't think he wants to be on the
2016
same stage as
Republicans narrowly
Pence.
flipped the Badger State red for the first time since
And for
Ronald
Pence, the
Reagan.
feeling is likewise.
But it was back to blue by 2020. That election came during an unprecedented year. The country was rife with tension. In the suburbs of Milwaukee, the division seemed deeper than ever. But that was just the beginning. 2 years later, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Roe versus Wade, leaving the legality of abortion up to the states.
Yeah,
In
I wonder what the
Wisconsin, that
Republicans
meant
have
a
to say
nearly
about
total
that
ban.
on stage.
The power of that issue drove Democrats to the polls this year. Now, that new thin liberal majority on the court could have that abortion issue before it again, just as the race for the White House accelerates. Tonight, the Republican candidates will face off at the home of the Bucks and the Marquette Golden Eagles, hoping to return next July to this city on the shore of Lake Michigan to accept the Republican nomination at their party's national convention.
live at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee.
8 Republican candidates have qualified and have chosen to be here on our debate stage tonight. They are here to lay out their vision for America, the battle as they battle for the GOP nomination. Good evening, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum.
And I'm Bret Baier. This is the very same stage on which the Republican choice for president will accept the party's nomination next summer. The 8 contenders are positioned by the order they sit in the polls, with the highest polling candidates in the middle standing center stage. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Next, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy.
Former Vice President Mike Pence.
Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
South Carolina Senator Tim Scott.
Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson.
And North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum.
Some ground rules for tonight. We'll ask the questions, and then candidates get 1 minute to answer. If someone is singled out, you get 30 seconds to respond. And when the time runs out, we all will hear this. Very pleasant.
So tonight, these candidates have a big opportunity to break out of the pack and to explain why they are best prepared to be the Republican choice for president, at a time when the likely Democrat nominee, President Joe Biden, is working to convince the country that with Bidenomics, things are looking up.
They call my plan Bidenomics. I'm not sure they meant it in a totally complimentary way at the time. But guess what? It's working.
But is it? More than 65% of Americans say the country is headed in the wrong direction. And here's the reality for some voters we talked to here in Wisconsin this week.
We have noticed a dramatic increase in prices at the grocery store just across the board.
Gas is high and food is high. A lot of people out here homeless because they can't buy food.
It's tough when you got mortgage rates at 7-8% versus 2 to 3. It's just you can't afford the house anymore.
Inflation is ridiculous. It's killing us out here.
As we sit here tonight, the #1 song on the Billboard chart is called Rich Men North of Richmond. It is by a singer from Farmville, Virginia, named Oliver Anthony. His lyrics speak of alienation, of deep frustration with the state of government and of this country. Washington, D.C. is about 100 miles north of Richmond.
These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows.
In this country right now. What do you think it means?
Our country is in decline. This decline is not inevitable. It's a choice. We need to send Joe Biden back to his basement and reverse American decline. And it starts with understanding we must reverse Bidenomics so that middle-class families have a chance to succeed again. We cannot succeed as a country if you are working hard and you can't afford groceries, a car, or a new home, while Hunter Biden can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on lousy paintings. That is wrong. We also cannot succeed when the Congress spends trillions and trillions of dollars. Those rich men north of Richmond have put us in this situation. And finally, we need to lower your gas prices. We're going to open up all energy production. We will be energy dominant again in this country. I showed it could be done in the state of Florida. I pledge to you as your president, we will get the job done, and I will not let you down.
Governor DeSantis, thank you. Governor Christie, do you agree with Governor DeSantis just said there? And why would you be better on the economy than him?
Well,
look, I do agree predominantly with what Governor DeSantis just laid out. I think that if you asked every one of us up here, that we would agree predominantly with what he just laid out. Here's the difference. The difference is that we're going to have to work and make sure that we sell these ideas and be able to put ourselves in a position where we get a majority of the vote, not only by winning the Congress and the Senate in 24, but also by having someone who's had the experience of doing it. Now, I was elected as a conservative Republican in a blue state with 61% of the vote, with a Democratic legislature against me the entire time. And we still, through hard, strong decision-making, brought them around to our point of view. We cut taxes in New Jersey. We cut debt in New Jersey. We made sure that each and every time we were confronted with bad Democratic ideas, we stood and stopped them. And when there were good ideas, we brought people together to make progress going forward. Truth and accountability are the things we need to do to fight waste. And I'd say the last thing is this, Brett. We cannot sit by any longer and allow the kind of spending that's going on in Washington, because every dollar they spend is a dollar that these people are not allowed to spend on their children and their grandchildren. It's robbing our country, and it's wrong.
Well, Governor, let me just follow up very quickly. New Jersey, when you were governor, had the second lowest credit rating in the nation after Illinois, and it was downgraded 11 times.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what happens when you inherit a blue state that has done that. But when you look at what we did on debt, Brett, in that state, we cut debt in that state, debt that had been left to us by 3 Democratic gubernatorial predecessors of mine who ran up that debt tremendously. And what you also saw us do was to cut the unemployment rate in half. It was over 10% when I became governor in 2010. What we also did was cut pension payments to public employees to make sure that taxpayers were not being soaked by a public employee union system that was killing the taxpayer.
Thank you, Governor.
Tim Scott, Senator Scott, excuse me. The song also goes after welfare programs. As a senator, now President Biden argued for freezing federal spending, this was back in the 80s, and dealing with sacred cows. He does not talk about that anymore. You have been a senator, though, for 10 years. So what have you done to rein in the increasing size of government?
Well, thank you for the question. Over the last several years, I've had an opportunity to vote against spending package after spending package after spending package. What we also need to understand is that Joe Biden's Bidenomics has led to the loss of $10,000 of spending power for the average family. When you see 16% inflation, your gas is up 40%, your food is up 20%, your electricity is up 20%. We can stop that by turning the spigot off at Washington, sending the money back to the states, and allowing the decisions to be made at their own houses. I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017. We cut taxes for a single mom like the one that raised me by 70%, for dual households by 60%, returning to the average family $4,000. If you don't send it to Washington, we can't spend it. That's good news for the American people.
Okay, but just to follow up, you did, during the Trump administration, you approved $4.4 trillion, $4.1 trillion, $1.7 trillion over the course of that administration. That's a lot of money.
There's no doubt that during the Trump administration, when we were dealing with the COVID virus, we spent more money. But here's what happened at the end of our time in the majority. We had low unemployment, record low unemployment, 3.5% for the majority of the population, 70-year low for women. African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians had an all-time low, but our inflation was at 2%. Under Joe Biden, we've seen the exact opposite. We've seen inflation explode, which led to 12 Federal Reserve increases that's devastating home buyers today.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you're listening to these answers.
If I may,
hold on one second.
We're going to, I don't know if I get a chance to respond.
He didn't mention you specifically, but we'll be with you in a second, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Ramaswamy, listening to all of this, why should voters choose you over more experienced politicians on this stage? You're basically, a blank slate for people. You're 38 years old. You've said that you only voted in 2 presidential elections before this moment, this political race.
So first, let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician, Brett. You're right about that. I'm an entrepreneur. My parents came to this country with no money 40 years ago. I have gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies. I did it while marrying my wife, Apoorva, raising our 2 sons, following our faith in God. That is the American dream. And I am genuinely worried that that American dream will not exist for our 2 sons and their generation unless we do something about it. And I do think Brett is going to take an outsider, because for a long time we have professional politicians in the Republican Party who have been running from something. Now is our moment to start running to something, to our vision of what it means to be an American today. If you have a broken car, you don't turn over the keys to the people who broke it again. You hand it over to a new generation to actually fix the problem. That's why I'm in this race, and we're just getting warmed up.
All right, to you, Governor Haley. So why are you better positioned to turn around this economy that we've heard all of these voters talking about tonight than Mr. Ramaswamy, who is a successful entrepreneur nationally right now? He's beating you in the polls.
Well, I don't care about polls. What I care about the fact is that no one is telling the American people the truth. The truth is that Biden didn't do this to us. Our Republicans did this to us, too. When they passed that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill, they left us with 90 million people on Medicaid, 42 million people on food stamps. No one has told you how to fix it. I'll tell you how to fix it. They need to stop the spending. They need to stop the borrowing. They need to eliminate the earmarks that the Republicans brought back in. And they need to make sure they understand these are taxpayer dollars. It's not their dollars. And while they're all saying this, you have Ron DeSantis, you've got Tim Scott, you've got Mike Pence. They all voted to raise the debt. And Donald Trump added $8 trillion to our debt. And our kids are never going to forgive us for this. And so at the end of the day, you look at the 2024 budget, Republicans asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks. Democrats asked for $2.8 billion. So you tell me who are the big spenders. I think it's time for an accountant in the White House.
Vice President Pence, you were mentioned there. 54% of voters say the cost of groceries is a, quote, major problem for them. Right. You blamed the Biden administration spending for that increase. But as vice president, your administration spent more than any prior, $7.8 trillion added to the national debt, $3.5 trillion of that before COVID. So does that mean that you're part of the spending problem?
Well, first off, thanks for the question. Thanks for letting me respond to a reference to our administration's record. I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. I mean, in 4 short years, we rebuilt our military. We revived our economy. We unleashed American energy. And we appointed 3 conservatives to the Supreme Court that gave the American people a new beginning for the right to life. Now, Martha, you asked earlier who's the most best prepared for this job. And I must say, with all due respect to all of my friends on the stage, and even to one that's probably looking on, I think unquestionably I am the best prepared, the most tested, the most qualified and proven conservative in this race. I was a leader in the Congress of the United States. I led Indiana, where we balanced budgets and had a AAA bond rating when I was governor. And as Vice President of the United States, we spent funding to backfill on the military cuts of the Obama administration, and then we were there in the worst pandemic in 100 years. All that being said, I was the first person in this race to say that we've got to deal with the long-term national debt issues. You got people on this stage that won't even talk about issues like Social Security and Medicare. I mean, Vivek, you recently said a president can't do everything. Well, I got news for you, Vivek. I've been in the hallway. I've been in the West Wing. A president of the United States has to confront every crisis facing America. I will put our nation back on the path to growth and prosperity and restore fiscal responsibility, just as I did in Congress and as governor,
Mr. Vice President,
and when I was vice president.
But,
Yeah,
I mean,
if I may respond to that,
Hold
since
on.
I was
You were
since I was
named earlier.
invoked.
I'm going to give Vivek first.
We'll get to both of you.
Yeah, this isn't that complicated, guys. Unlock American energy, drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Put people back to work by no longer paying them more to stay at home. Reform the U.S. Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations acting like a wet blanket on the economy. So I'm not sure I exactly understood Mike Pence's comment, but I'll let you all parse that out. For me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on it.
Let me explain it to you. Let me explain it to you, if I can. I'll go slower this time.
I sometimes struggle with the reading comprehension.
Look, I was a House conservative leader before it was cool. I actually pushed a Deficit Reduction Act. That was the last time we actually reduced the national debt in the United States, when I was the leader of House conservatives. I balanced budgets and cut taxes when I was governor. I mean, look, Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. Now is not the time for on-the-job training. We don't need to bring in a rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience. We need to bring
Hold on. It's 30 seconds when you have a rebuttal, okay? And you are up, Governor DeSantis.
So here's the thing. Why are we in this mess? Part of it, and a major reason, is because how this federal government handled COVID-19 by locking down this economy. It was a mistake. It should have never happened. And in Florida, we led the country out of lockdown. We kept our state free and open. And I can tell you this, as your president, I will never let the deep state bureaucrats lock you down. You don't take somebody like Fauci and coddle him. You bring Fauci in, you sit him down, and you say, Anthony, you are fired.
You know what? We're going to bring in.
I just want to finish responding to Mike. I just want to respond to Mike for 1 second because he invoked me back. Listen, now that everybody's gotten their memorized, pre-prepared slogans out of the way, we can actually have a real discussion now. The reality and the fact of the matter is...
Was that one of yours?
Not really, Mike, actually. We're just going to have some fun tonight. And the reality is, you have a bunch of people, professional politicians, super PAC puppets, following slogans handed over to them by their 400-page super PACs last week. The real choice we face in this primary is this. Do you want a super PAC puppet, or do you want a patriot who speaks the truth? Do you want incremental reform, which is what you're hearing about, or do you want revolution?
Okay.
And I stand on the side of the American revolution.
I've got to address
We're going to take control back here.
We need everyone to have a moment on the economy.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Can I address the COVID
there are two
issue
people
that
who
the
have
governor
not.
brought up?
We're going to get back to that. We are. There are two people who we have not heard from yet. So let's hear from Governor Burgum and then from Governor Hutchinson on the economy, sir.
Well, great. Thank you, Martha. And of course, I'm from a town of 300 people. It's a big deal to make it on this stage with all these folks. But when they were all wishing me well, and I think I took them a little too literally when they said, go to Milwaukee and break a leg. But I do want to say on this, we're missing something. We can't just talk about the Biden economy because the economy, energy, and national security are all tied together. Of course, we're paying too much for our energy in our state, in our country right now. But part of the reason why is because of the Biden policies on energy. We've got a plan right now, the $1.2 trillion of Green New Deal spending buried in the Inflation Creation Act is something that is just subsidizing China. If we're going to stop buying oil from the Middle East and start buying batteries from China, we're just trading OPEC for Sinopec. And then belatedly, the Biden administration says, no, we're going to put sanctions on Russian oil. Well, we put sanctions on Russian oil, well, then it's 20% off. Who's buying it? China. So if you buy a battery in this country, you buy a solar panel, it's being produced in a plant in China powered by coal, or it's being powered by oil and gas at 20% off. And every farmer in this country would like to buy diesel at 20% off, just like they're buying it in China.
Governor Hutchinson, quickly.
Thank you, Grant. Delighted to be here tonight. And let me just tell you that I'm a pro-life governor from a conservative state that have a conservative record in which I lowered taxes in Arkansas as governor. I created a $2 billion surplus that I passed over to my successor, and I made sure that we shrunk the size of government. We have 14% fewer state employees in Arkansas after I left government than when I took over as governor 8 years ago. I tell that because that's what we need in Washington, D.C. We need somebody who can actually constrain the growth of the federal government, that can actually reduce the size, and I've pledged to reduce by 10% our federal non-defense workforce. That's a specific pledge to make that attacks the administrative state. And let me applaud some of the business partners that are here that have had success in business. But let me tell you, I've been a federal prosecutor. I've served our country in terms of being head of the DEA, in Homeland Security, in times of crisis. And while I think that that's experience that is important for the future of our country, to be the President of the United States that can lead with positive solutions and be held accountable.
Thank you. We have a lot of topics to get to, and I promise we're going to get to everyone if we play within the rules. Okay, next topic. More than 1,000 people are still unaccounted for in Maui after the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century. Hawaii's governor and White House officials said that climate change amplified the cost of human error.
And a tropical storm hit California for the first time in 84 years. The ocean hit 101 degrees off the coast of Florida. And in the last month, the heat wave in the Southwest broke records nearly 50 years old.
So Alexander Diaz from Young America's Foundation has a question for you all.
Polls consistently show that young people's #1 issue is climate change. How will you, as both President of the United States and leader of the Republican Party, calm their fears that the Republican Party doesn't care about climate change?
So we want to start on this with a show of hands. Do you believe in human behavior is causing climate change? Raise your hand if you do.
Well, look, we're not school children. Let's have the debate. I mean, I'm happy to take it to start. Alexander?
So do you want to raise your hand or not?
I don't think that's the way to do. So let me just say to Alexander this. First of all, one of the reasons our country's decline is because of the way the corporate media treats Republicans versus Democrats. Biden was on the beach while those people were suffering. He was asked about it. He said no comment. Are you kidding me? As somebody that's handled disasters in Florida, you got to be activated. You've got to be there. You've got to be present. You've got to be helping people who are doing this. And here's the deal.
Let's just answer the question.
So is that a yes or is that a yes? Is that a hand raise?
You do not.
I think it was a hand raise for him, and it's my hands are in my pockets.
No,
because
no, no,
the climate change agenda is a
raise a
hoax. Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax, and we have to declare independence for it. And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy. And so the reality is, more people are dying of bad climate change policies than they are of actual climate change.
Governor Haley, are you bought and paid for?
Down by 98% in the last century.
Listen.
I've had enough. I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here. And the last person in one of these debates, Brett, who stood in the middle of the stage and said, "What's a skinny guy with an odd last name doing up here?" was Barack Obama, and I'm afraid we're dealing with the same type of amateur standing on stage tonight.
Come over and give me a hug. Give me a hug just like you did to Obama.
The same type of amateur.
And you'll help elect me just like you did to Obama, too. Give me that
the
bear hug,
same
brother.
type of amateur.
Hold on. Governor Haley, would you like to respond? Are you bought and paid for?
What I would like to say is the fact that I think this is exactly why Margaret Thatcher said, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman. First of all, we do care about clean air, clean water. We want to see that taken care of, but there's a right way to do it.
Thanks,
and the right way to do it is, first of all, yes, is climate change real? Yes, it is. But if you want to go and really change the environment, then we need to start telling China and India that they have to lower their emissions. That's where our problem is.
How long was I muted?
And these green subsidies that Biden has put in, all he's done is help China, because he doesn't understand all these electric vehicles that he's done, what that does. half of the batteries for electric vehicles
mic
are
was
made in
unplugged.
China. And so that's not helping the environment. You're putting money in China's pocket, and Biden did that. So first of all, I think we need to acknowledge the truth, which is these subsidies are not working. We also need to take on the international world and say, okay, India and China, you've got to stop polluting, and that's when we'll start to deal with
Senator
climate.
Scott, are you bought and paid for?
Absolutely.
Are you bought and paid for?
I'm sorry?
Are you bought and paid
Absolutely not. I mean, here's what the American
Every
people deserve.
single person
is a
on the
debate
stage
about
is
the
bought and paid
issues
for.
that affect their lives. Going back and forth and being childish is not helpful to the American people to decide on the next leader of our country. Number one, wait a second. And number two, as a kid who grew up in a single-parent household mired in poverty, I wondered, was the American dream real for kids
the whole
who were
debate.
devastated by
That's
poverty,
insane.
devastated by the
That is
challenges of
insane.
life? I came to the conclusion that America can do for anyone what she's done for me if we focus on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting America. If we want the environment to be better, and we all do, the best thing to do is to bring our jobs home from China. If we create 10 million new jobs in my Made in America plan, we will have a better...
Whatever. Yeah, according to my brother, I was muted that entire time. No telling how long I was muted, but yeah, that's really frustrating. I can't wait to get a new fucking microphone. Shit.
In half in the last 25 years. The places where they are continuing to increase, Africa, 950 million people. India, over 1 billion. China, over 1 billion. Why would we put ourselves at a disadvantage, devastating our own economy? Let's bring our jobs home.
We have a lot of different topics to get to.
Yeah, we do. We thank you all. Thank you, Senator Scott. So coming up next, the candidates will weigh in on what could be a defining issue in the 2024 campaign. The first Republican debate continues moments away.
We've got to be a lot smarter in how we talk about women and how we show them that we care.
We're going to stand up for the unborn in Washington, D.C. And if you cannot do that, you should not be the nominee for the Republican Party.
Yeah, no, it's true.
This is a defining moment.
This entire time, I can't believe it. God, that's so
Boy, if that's not
annoying.
an appetizer for what the rest of this thing's going to look like, I don't know what is. The glove's starting to come off right at the end of that. A tease for what's coming next. Guys, it was Bidenomics, it was climate change. Frankly, I was a little surprised by that second topic, but it was actually really interesting and unleashed a lot of commentary. Let me go around the horn. Will Kane, what are you thinking, man?
Microphone or something like that.
Yeah, it was like a flurry of punches right before the bell. Who thought a question about climate change would turn into some of the best barbs you've seen in a debate in some memory? She asked about climate change, and Ron DeSantis immediately rejects the premise, won't play the hand raise game, and I think comes out looking very authoritative in that moment, saying, this is what I would do to address the issue. Vivek then says he's the only one on the stage not bought and paid for, and Chris Christie accuses him of sounding like ChatGPT and being an amateur. And it's all fun, and it's all sharp, Pete. It's sharp. But I do want to say this. The question was in the context of 1,000 people being missing still in Maui.
That's
and I
true.
can tell you for one right now, what I want to know is who is a competent leader when we as a people require leadership.
At least my mic is actually
That's a good point. They did glaze over that. Unfortunately, because it's a commercial, we got to go fast. Tammy, your thoughts?
Well, I thought Nikki Haley's response to that
that's
bickering
so
between
frustrating.
Vivek and Chris Christie was perfect, because that's the difference. It's like, what are you going to have theater? Are you
mostly I was just
auditioning
like
for a
laughing
flex
the
tape
whole time,
commercial,
you know.
Or are you really going to deliver
my takeaway so far from the debate, the more Chris Christie talks, the better it is, because he can see through the bullshit of basically everybody else there. Doug Eyebrows, what's his face, is a non-entity. Asa Hutchinson, nobody from Arkansas should go near the White House again. Basically, everybody on this stage, all they care about is cutting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and delivering for their donors. They want to decrease the power of the federal government and basically put as much money and power into the hands of their wealthy corporate donors as much as possible. That's the game here. That's the only goal out. It doesn't matter who becomes president here. I mean, none of these people are becoming president. Like no chance in hell. But that's the game plan. That's the Republican modus operandi. It has been for election cycle after election cycle for decades and decades. Nobody here has a chance, but it's so funny to see them go back and forth. Mike Pence has no reason to be here at all. He's pretty embarrassing. Vivek Ramaswamy is an empty suit. Very cringe and annoying, and yeah, he just the fact alone that he's calling the climate change and agenda like a hoax and all that, like, yeah, you lost, buddy. You don't have a chance in hell. Like, you didn't answer the question. Like, you're just in denial of reality. If your answer to everything is drill, baby, drill, new oil permits, just start fracking, you don't stand a chance. Like. Like, goddamn, like, how much are the oil billionaires paying your ass?
Share with you really quickly, Pete, which is that Mike Pence is coming off as defensive, in my estimation. He's coming off not
yes, he is.
But as
Mike
a bit
Pence
angry.
is coming off as defensive.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Oh,
really,
take a shot for the beans.
You wonder what they're
Hell
chatting
yeah.
about and
It's
thinking
good
about
to see
right
you,
now.
dude.
We
You
got
know what?
about 15
I'll take, like, my
seconds.
biggest
We don't
shot
know
here.
what the second topic will be because we're not in Brett and Martha's head. But we're back to him right now. We'll see you guys in the next commercial break.
Let me get a large screen here for you, because it doesn't matter what's going on the screen right now. Rick.
Abortion has been a losing issue for Republicans since the Dobbs decision.
Shut up. So, I got Jack Fire and a little bit of butterscotch soda in here. Cheers. All right. We're talking about
So, Governor Haley,
referendums on
what do you
abortion.
say to your party and to your state, which today confirmed a 6-week abortion law as well, especially the impact on women suburban voters across this country?
Thank you, Martha. I am
She's gonna dodge the
unapologetically
question.
pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband was adopted and I had
husband?
trouble having both of my children, so I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said
Whatever.
that, we need to stop demonizing this issue. This is talking about the fact that unelected justices didn't need to decide something this personal, because it's personal for every woman and man. Now it's been put in the hands of the people. That's great. When it comes to a federal ban, let's be honest with the American people and say it will take 60 Senate votes. It will take a majority of the House. So in
No.
order to do
No,
that,
you're
let's
just
find
anti-democracy.
consensus. Can't we all agree that we should ban
God
late-term
damn it.
abortions? Can't we all
It-
agree
it was
that
already
we should
banned
encourage
under Roe
adoptions?
versus
Can't
Wade.
we all
Roe
agree
versus Wade
that
was
doctors
a
and
moderate
nurses who don't believe in
proposal.
abortion shouldn't have to perform them? Can't we all agree that contraception should be available?
A seventh
and can't
grader
we all agree
in
that we are not
Alabama.
going to put a woman
Was
in
it
jail
Alabama?
or give her the death penalty if
Just
she gets an
gave
abortion?
birth.
Let's treat this like a respectful issue that it is and humanize
She
the
had
situation
no
and
idea
stop
what
demonizing
pregnancy
the
even
situation.
fucking was. And because of these draconian laws, she was forced to give birth because she was afraid, her mom was afraid that they'd be prosecuted if
one of your biggest financial
she got an abortion in her
backers
state. And the
said
same
that you
went
need
for
to, quote,
her
shift to
doctor.
get moderates or you will lose.
They couldn't even get it
What do you
done, and now
say
a
to
baby had a
him
baby.
And others who say politically that is a tough thing to sell nationally.
Well, I would say we sold the biggest election landslide victory in the history of the Republican Party in the state of Florida in 2022. That's what I did. We can win. But second of all, look,
No, you can't.
you got to do what you think is right. I believe in a culture of life. I was
you're
proud to
failing in the
sign the
polls.
heartbeat bill. I remember one of the most impactful moments of my life was when I heard the heartbeat of my oldest daughter in my wife's womb, and then saw the sonograms of all 3 of my kids. What the Democrats are trying to do on this issue is wrong, to allow abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. I know a lady in Florida named Penny. She survived multiple abortion attempts. She was left discarded in a pan. Fortunately, her grandmother saved her and brought her to a different hospital. We're better than what the Democrats are selling. We are not going to allow abortion all the way up till birth, and we will hold them accountable.
That was never
for their
allowed anyway,
extremism.
bud.
But just to be clear, Governor, would you sign a 6-week ban federally?
I'm going to stand on the side of life. Look, I understand Wisconsin is going to do it different than Texas.
It
I
means
understand
yes, he
Iowa
is.
and
It
New Hampshire are
means
going to do
get
different.
out and vote
But
against these
I will
clowns.
support the cause of life as governor and as president.
Vice President Pence,
Every single person on the stage is okay with seventh graders giving birth because they were R-worded.
Well, look,
R-worded.
I'm not new to this cause. After I gave my life to Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I opened up the book and I read, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And see, I set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life." And I knew from that moment on the cause of life had to be my cause. And I've been a champion for life in the Congress, a champion for life as governor and as vice president. And to be honest with you, Nikki, you're my friend, but consensus is the opposite of leadership. When the Supreme Court returned this question to the American people, they didn't just send it to the states only. It's not a states only issue, it's a moral issue. And I promise you, as President of the United States, the American people will have a champion for life in the Oval Office. Can't we have a minimum standard in every state in the nation that says when a baby is capable of feeling pain, an abortion cannot be allowed? A 15-week ban is an idea whose time has come. It's supported by 70% of the American people, but it's going to take unapologetic leadership that stands on principle and expresses compassion for women in crisis.
I have no idea
I'll do that
why.
as President of the United States.
He called my name.
Trump chose him.
30 seconds. So first of all, I will say it is in the hands of the people, and that's where it should be. But when you're talking about a federal ban, be honest with the American people. We haven't had 45 pro-life senators in over 100 years. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president could ban all those state laws. Don't make women feel like they have to decide on this issue when you know we don't have 60 Senate votes in the House.
70% of the American people support legislation
but
to ban
70%
abortion
of the
after
Senate
a baby is
does
capable
not.
of experiencing pain.
It's
just going to take leadership.
Hold on.
70% of the Senate does not. You have to be honest with the American
people. We have to have
people.
a 15-week limit.
Let's get Governor Bergman for one minute here. But the Supreme Court did overturn Roe v. Wade, and the result of that decision was that it went back to the states. So that's where it is right now. So as I understand it, you are not in favor of a federal ban. What do you say about the states? There's about 5 of them, including New Jersey, I think a few others, that allow abortion up until the time of birth, though. If you were president, would you be able to abide that?
Roe versus Wade already took care of
very
that.
pro-life state. And this issue is, of course, very important. But I am on the record, and I stand behind that we should not have a federal abortion ban.
It goes in
We should not.
circles.
And the reason why we shouldn't is very simple. It's the 10th Amendment in the Constitution. In the Constitution, which the states created the federal government, not the other way around, it says that there were certain duties allowed to the federal government delegated to them by the states. The rest are left to the states, comma, or importantly, or to the people. We need to get back to freedom and liberty for the people in this country. And we can't have Republicans who fight for 50 years for this great cause and to return it back to the states, and then the next day they turn around and go, no, the feds should do that, because the feds are stepping into people's lives, they're stepping into people's businesses. If we say that the feds should be in on this one, where do we stop? I say that we follow the Constitution, and this is returned to the states. This is where it should be.
Wow, he's actually got a sensible, moderate position that he's actually pretty correct.
Governor Bergman, you signed a 6-week ban.
I'll take it.
You're saying federally, it's all going to go to the states.
Yes, and what is going to work in New York will never work in North Dakota, and vice versa. That's why
I love
50
democracy.
states. That's why 50 states.
I love the Republic. This is too important of an issue that I have to address. First of all, the Supreme Court gave it back to the elected representatives, whether it's the states or whether it's the United States Congress. So there is authority, and that's why President Biden is pushing for a Democrat proposal, which is, in essence, abortion on demand through the term. So they have their extreme position at a national level. It's most likely going to be addressed in the states, but it's certainly fine for it to be addressed at the national level as well. Arkansas has the record of being the most pro-life state in the nation. I signed 30 pro-life pieces of legislation while I was governor. And every state can determine a different outcome here. And it is the most important issue for women and for the unborn child and for our country that we get this right. It's going to be a continued debate. Let's talk about it in terms of compassion, in terms of protecting the life, and also understanding how we have to enhance adoption services, how we have to enhance maternal care. Those things we've done in Arkansas and are important for our nation's future.
There are a lot of issues that are very important. Senator, I'll let you weigh in.
We cannot let states like California, New York, and Illinois have abortions on demand up until the day of birth. That is immoral. It is unethical.
It doesn't
it is wrong.
happen. It's not happening,
President of the
dude.
United States who will advocate and fight for at the minimum
I
of
need a
15-week
couple
limit.
shots just for
I am
this stupid-ass fucking
100%
abortion
pro-life
debate.
conservative. I have a 100% pro-life record. I got to tell you, though, we must fight for life. Our Declaration of Independence says our Creator gave us inalienable rights that include life. That is a list. That is an issue we must solve. We can't leave it to Illinois. We can't leave it to Minnesota. We can't leave it to Illinois. We must solve that issue with a 15-week limit at a minimum.
I think we're all pro-life.
There are more
but
people
what I would
living
love
in
is for
Illinois,
someone
New
to
York,
ask
and
Biden and
California.
Kamala Harris, are they for 38 weeks? Are they for 39 weeks? Are they for 40 weeks? Because that's what the media needs to be asking.
All right, another issue is America and the crime crisis, the
Yeah, an issue
homelessness
is
crisis.
America.
American
America
cities
is
are
definitely
in
an
decline.
issue.
People are moving out as homelessness, drugs, crime move in. There are problems accelerated. They did accelerate during the pandemic and are still rising.
So you can hear my
Murders in
annoying
Los
ass.
Angeles, New York, Chicago, all up 30% between 2019 and 2022. Homelessness is up 11%, the largest jump in recorded history. Vice President Pence, a lot of this began in the COVID era.
Yeah.
How much of what we're seeing happening around this country is a result of those COVID lockdowns, and is your administration in part to blame for how we got here?
Well, I think what's in part to blame is the Democrats have been talking about defunding the police.
What does that have to do with homelessness, my guy? What the
law
fuck?
enforcement, particularly in our major cities, at unprecedented levels. I mean, it's extraordinary to think about the violence that's claiming innocent lives literally every week in every major city in this country.
What does this have to
And yet
do with people
Democrats
going
and liberal
homeless?
prosecutors in major metropolitan areas continue to work out their fanciful agendas, to do bail reform and
This is a
and
bad
go
idea.
easy.
This is
What
bad for
we
their mental
need
health.
is strong commitment to law enforcement. We need leadership in Washington, D.C. that'll marshal the resources of the states, marshal the resources of the American people. But let me also say it's about opportunity. I mean, a lot of people don't know that those Trump-Pence tax cuts that we got signed into law go away at the end of 2025 if we don't have a Republican president and a Republican House and a Republican Senate.
You mean
When
the
I'm
tax
president of the
cuts
United
that went
States,
to
we're
all
actually
your
going to
rich
cut taxes
buddies?
further. We're going to extend those tax cuts, and we're going to close the Federal Department of
What
Education,
what good are
block
tax
grant all
cuts
that
if
funding
people
back to the
are
states
losing their homes
with a
because they
growing
can't afford to
economy and
live there?
educational choice and law enforcement. We will bring our cities back.
Governor Christie,
What does law
another issue.
enforcement
This
have to
weekend
do with going
here in
homeless?
Milwaukee, reports say there were 30 shootings, and a number of them including kids. Add that to the big increase in school shootings around the country. Democrats blame this crisis on easy
it's
access
the
to
largest
guns. They
junk
also
in
blame
history.
Republicans for blocking
Kinda
gun
sus.
control legislation. What would President Christie do?
You know, I'm proud of the fact, Brett, that I'm the
You're
only
bringing the
person along
haymakers
with
through.
Governor
I love it.
Hutchinson up on this stage who's actually running United States Attorney's Office. I ran the 5th largest office in America in a state where there is significant urban crime. And the problem is not going to be solved by more money. The problem is that these prosecutors in these localities in the states are refusing to do their job and to arrest violent criminals. So what a President Christie would do is appoint an attorney general who would instruct each of the 93 U.S. attorneys that they are to take over the prosecution of violent crime in every one of those cities that are failing to do so. We have plenty of room in the federal prisons to lock up these violent criminals and clean up what's going on all across this country in these individual cities. Secondly, What we need to make sure that each and every one of these criminals understand is that the laws apply to everybody. And when Hunter Biden fills out a fake application, a false application for
I'm adding it
for
to
a
the
gun
game.
permit,
Hunter
and
Biden
then
was
is facing
mentioned.
a 10-year
Cheers.
mandatory minimum, which was mandated by legislation sponsored by his father. And then you have a Justice Department that walks away from those charges. We're telling people that the law doesn't apply to everybody. In a Christie administration, he would go to jail for 10 years.
What about a President Ramaswamy?
Okay,
what
here's
does
the thing.
President Ramaswamy do about guns?
Riddle me this.
So the reality is we have a crime wave in this country, and
I
we
don't
know
care
how
what
to
this guy
fix it.
says. Riddle me this: if Hunter Biden's not being held accountable, tell me why Joe Biden hasn't pardoned him yet.
Just over the same period that we have closed mental health institutions, we have seen a spike in violent crime. Do we have the spine to bring them back? I think we should. As president, I will. But it's not just drugging up people in those psychiatric institutions with Zoloft and
Asylums
Seroquel.
were
It's a
horrendous.
deeper issue. I think faith-based approaches can play a role here, too. We're in the middle of a national identity crisis. And I say this as a member of my generation. The problem in our country right now, the reason we have that mental
Is
health
Republicans.
epidemic, is that people are so hungry for purpose and meaning at a time when family, faith, patriotism, hard work have all disappeared. What we really need is a tonal reset from the top, saying that this is what it
Why
means to
from
be an
the
American.
top, bud?
Yes, we
Like,
will
why
stand
can't
for
it
the
be
rule of law.
from the bottom?
Yes, we will close the southern border where criminals are coming in every day. And yes, we will back law enforcement because we remember who we really are. And that's also how we address that mental health epidemic in the next generation that is directly leading to violent crime across this country.
Governor DeSantis, really quickly. Governor DeSantis.
We don't have an identity crisis, Vivek. We're not looking for a new national identity. The American people are the most faith-filled, freedom-loving, idealistic, hardworking people the world has ever known. We just need government as good as our people.
I mean, even all of that's
The
not
difference is
true.
You might have, some others like you may have on the stage, it's Morning in America speech. It is not Morning in America. We live in a dark moment, and we have to confront the fact that we're in an internal, sort of cold cultural civil war. And we have to
Equating the
recognize
American
that
people
in order
with the
to actually
failed
win.
government in Washington, D.C. We just need government as good as our people again.
So let me just finish addressing that slogan because I don't know what that slogan means. We need to shut down the administrative state. That's actually how we translate it.
Crime has been on the rise in Florida, Governor DeSantis.
I love those two just butting heads all night.
Well, actually, crime's at a 50-year low
Not
in
in-
Florida.
not in Miami.
We're happy with that.
Not in
well,
Miami.
Statewide, it's a 50-year low. And so here's the thing. These hollowed out cities, this is a symptom of America's decline. And one of the biggest reasons is because you have George Soros funding these radical left-wing district attorneys. They get into office and they say they're not going to prosecute crimes they disagree with. The inmates start running the asylum. There's one guy in this entire country that's ever done anything about that. Me. When we had two of these district attorneys in Florida elected with Soros funding who said they wouldn't do their job, I removed them from their posts. They are gone. And as president, we are going to go after all of these people because they are hurting the quality of life and they are victimizing innocent people in every corner of this country, and it will stop when I get into office.
Okay, one more here before the break, Governor Berger.
Whatever, bud.
But Brett and Martha, I just thought it was interesting. You asked your question about the problems we're having in big cities. Nobody ever asked the question of what about the crime wave in small towns? Because in a small town, neighbors help neighbors. People understand each other. If a farmer gets sick, everybody comes together and helps him get the crop off. There's accountability. There's transparency. One thing that I think this country could use is somebody in the White House that understands small town values, because that's our road back to get this country on track again.
No, because like more rural communities.
Was former head of the DEA. I understand the drug crisis in America.
Okay.
And right now, whenever you look at
no one ever actually talks about like crime in smaller
there's
towns,
three
more
simple
rural
words
communities.
that would be helpful. One, enforce the law when it comes to crime. Secondly, let's deal with the challenge of fentanyl. And it's both about stopping the fentanyl coming from Mexico, but it's also about education of our young people, making sure that we have the tools that are needed for addiction counseling. That's what we expanded
Are
in
Republicans
Arkansas
talking about
as
the need
well.
for education?
Whenever you look at the underlying challenge
Don't
of
know
America,
if the donors are going to
no
like
one
that.
likes to see an America with smash and grab in our
This guy's
inner
wearing a
cities.
fucking
As
Israel
President of the United
lapel pin.
States,
Are you kidding
that
me?
will stop. It starts at the top with the respect for our justice system that a former president who's under indictment has undermined by attacking judges, by attacking prosecutors, by attacking the system,
Damn it, Drew.
and saying he's aggrieved. And so we have to have respect for our justice system and the rule of law, and it starts at the top with the President of the United States.
It doesn't.
We're gonna take a break.
It does not start. Okay.
So, speaking of that, right now you are looking live at Fulton County
Perfect.
Jail, where former President Donald
Perfect
Trump
comment,
will be
Drew. It
processed
can't be Bob
tomorrow.
because he only wants to be
so
at the
next,
top.
the candidates will have an opportunity to talk about the coming trials of Donald Trump.
Oh, here we go. We're gonna get into some spicy shit. Yeah, Strawberry Small Town Source Line. Very funny. Very funny, Drew. Yeah, no, yeah, this is so very insufferable. Like, I'm just so relieved that none of these people actually have a chance of winning. Trump's going to be the Republican nominee, even though he's not here.
My take is, you know, on abortion, it almost came down to practical versus principle. You had the governors in Haley and DeSantis taking one approach, and the D.C. approach of Pence and Scott saying, no, we want a national ban. Kind of an interesting difference there. And then
Yeah, no, all these people.
Pence and Vivek have a bit of a thing tonight.
I'm just so over it already.
Certainly,
Screw it. Let's listen to what these clowns have to say, I guess.
Pretty interesting to see how
Actually, wait a minute.
and Vivek have a bit of a thing tonight. That line, I don't know what that slogan means. Certainly, Pence feels like I'm the experienced guy. You need on-the-job training. Pretty interesting. You can see how the crowd responded to that. Let's go with opposite order
Yeah,
this time.
Pence
Sean
really
Duffy,
doing what
your
he's doing.
takeaways.
He performed poorly in the debate against Kamala Harris, which honestly says a lot because Kamala Harris is about as interesting as a bowl of oatmeal.
Week ban, he won't answer the question.
Yeah,
You're not going to sign it. That's okay. Or if you don't think there should be a federal ban, it should be in the states. That's okay, but answer the question. I thought the strongest was Mike Pence. Again, I'm a pro-life guy. He showed conviction and he was dedicated to the cause. And in a primary debate, that's incredibly important.
It's all politics. It's all insufferable. That's true.
It's a good point. I think he did have a strong answer on that. What do we think? Nikki Haley looking pretty good there across the board. Will, what do you think? What's your take?
Fewer fireworks. I thought it leaned into policy more, and I thought actually Ron DeSantis sounded authoritative. I think that's what plays into his wheelhouse, to talk about policy and policy that was put into place in Florida. But now the real challenge starts for DeSantis and everybody else on that stage. Now you have to spend the next segment talking about Trump.
For sure. Tammy, your takeaways.
Well, I think Nikki Haley's answer actually about consensus on abortion was more about finding solutions on the things on which we all agree, like late-term abortion, like access to health care, to contraception, those kinds of things. I think in part you've got to think about what the majority of Americans think in a general election. That's the issue I believe affected the 22 midterms. So there's got to be a practicality here, and we've got to start where Americans are united. And there's many issues in that regard where we are united. On the other hand, of course, you've got on that same issue Burgum's point about the 10th Amendment. You know, are we really for small government or are we not? That this is about the states versus the power we're willing to give the federal government, because we all have our issues that we care about. Are we willing to give the federal government massive power because we agree with it versus when we don't? So that I thought was an excellent element into this. And I would have to agree about DeSantis. Only in that question about crime in big cities did he seem relaxed a little bit, like more into a confident self. And perhaps we'll have more of that. On Trump, you know the way to answer this is to recognize that none of this, frankly, is about Trump. It is about a federal government, an establishment that is out of control, using its power in a blind way to affect a political opponent. Everyone sees that. Certainly Republicans do. And that's the way you address this. Trump's being supported.
I have a feeling we're going to hear more about that. I thought Doug Burgum would at least break out, try that in a small town at the end of his small town answer. He's been going back to
that was a good answer,
small
though.
town a couple of times. It was a good answer. We'll see. In Asa Hutchinson, there just hasn't been any oomph there. It does feel like that having a record has been more of a liability so far. Just watching Vivek sort of be able to give, you might even call him cable news answers. He can give the answer he wants to give without having to spend the wind-up time of drawing on, well, this is what I did as governor, or this is what I did as senator, or this is what I voted for, which I don't know about you guys. Sometimes that just feels like white noise. It's like, no, what are you going to do next?
Or too many
what
Red
happens?
Bulls.
I don't know, just an interesting observation.
When you haven't led, when you haven't voted,
and that's all we got. Now
it's
we're out
really
of time.
easy to take to
That's true. That's true.
Be idealistic.
We got to go
but
back to the
gotta
debate.
lead.
We'll see you in a second.
Well, we have a lot to get to in this second hour of this GOP primary debate. Policy discussions the Americans want to hear you all on. China, Ukraine, immigration, education. But we are going to take a brief moment and talk about the elephant not in the room.
Former President Trump has been indicted in 4 different states on 91 counts. He will be processed tomorrow in Georgia at the Fulton County Jail for charges relating to the 2020 election loss.
You all signed a pledge to support the eventual Republican nominee. If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
Yes.
Just hold on. So just to be clear, Governor Christie, you were kind of late to the game there, but you raised your hand.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
What's the look? Here's the bottom line. Someone's got to stop normalizing this conduct. Okay? Now, whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States. And you know, this is the great thing about this country.
This is his moment.
Booing is allowed, but it doesn't change the truth.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the truth.
He's right.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you raised your hand supporting.
I'd like to get in and respond. Let's just speak the truth, okay? President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's a fact. And Chris Christie, honest to God, your claim that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible if your entire campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man. And if people at home want to see a bunch of people blindly bashing Donald Trump without an iota of vision for this country, they could just change the channel to MSNBC right now. But I'm not running for president of MSNBC. I am running for president of the United
Fox
States.
News.
We're skating on thin ice, and we cannot set a precedent where the party in power uses police force to indict its political opponents. It is wrong. We have to end the weaponization of justice.
That's not what's going on here. You know that's not what's going on here.
No, I'm sorry. 30 seconds, Governor Christie.
You make me laugh because
Goes both ways, brother.
you sit here in an answer. You sit here in an answer right.
Hold on one second.
You sit here in an answer.
Go ahead, Governor Christie.
Hold on, Governor Christie.
Hold on.
Yeah, wait for these classes.
So listen,
they look
the more
at.
time
They
we
look back
spend
at.
doing this, the less time they can talk about issues you want to talk about. So let's just get through this section. Governor Christie.
You sit here talking about how you want to stand up for the rule of law.
Yes.
And law and order. And the fact is that it can't be selective. In your book, you had much different things to say about Donald Trump than you're saying here tonight.
That's not true.
Well, it is very true.
That is not
it's
true.
Very true. I read it.
He's read his book.
Bad behavior and illegal behavior, Chris, and you as a prosecutor should know better.
Yeah, you know what? I know a lot better.
There's a difference between bad behavior. And
I know a lot better than you do. You've never done it like you've never done anything to try to advance the interests of this government except to put yourself forward as a candidate tonight. And here's the thing. We stood up for law and order. I did it as U.S. attorney. I did it as governor. And I am not going to bow to anyone when we have a president of the United States who disrespects the Constitution. He said,
your MSNBC contributor.
He said,
these are politicized indictments, and we have to call out the truth.
Martha, it's important to say that the president said, Donald Trump said, it's okay to suspend the Constitution. Now, the road you take is to preserve, protect, and defend, not suspend. I will always stand up for our Constitution, regardless of the political pressure.
Right. We have another question for you. We're going to get everyone in on this issue, but I have another question. I have another question. Hold on, you will. All right, so President Trump's former vice president is on this stage tonight.
Is that what they said, Drew? They said the greatest president of the 21st century?
Over his actions on January
6th. That is, you're right. That is kind of limiting the scope because there's only been 4 or 5 presidents
of the election. So, do you believe
that is a low bar?
That Mike Pence did the right thing, Senator Scott? Do you believe he did the right thing?
All right, I need another
Absolutely,
shot.
he did the right thing. Number one. Number two. We should be asking ourselves a bigger question about the weaponization of the Department of Justice. When I'm president, the first thing I'll do is fire Merrick Garland. Second thing I'll do, fire Christopher Wray, because we need Lady Justice to wear a blind.
Oh God. Well, I'm not missing much, so it's like whatever. Yeah. No, these people don't care about holding Trump accountable
Keep
for
seeing
anything.
not only the weaponization of the Department of Justice against political opponents, but also against
Republicans
parents
have no
who show
issue
up
doing
at
that,
school
though.
board meetings. They're called, under this DOJ, they're called domestic terrorists.
Firing Christopher
but that's not,
but
that's not
shut down the FBI. Actually have the courage to get it right.
Mr. Ramaswamy.
Let me finish my comments. Not only that, in addition to that, we see the SWAT team show up at pro-life activist homes with guns drawn because this DOJ uses their power, uses their authority,
out of context
not just
anecdote.
against political opponents, but against conservatives and conservative causes. It is time for a change in America, and I will bring that change to the greatest nation on God's green earth.
We have an important
But Governor
question still
DeSantis,
to
do you
answer.
believe that Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th?
So here's what we need to do. We need to
Answer
end
the question.
weaponization of these federal agents.
But that's not
I
the
will do
question.
that.
That's not the question.
I know, but here's the thing.
answer the
This
question.
election is not about January 6th of 2021.
Why
It's
not?
about January 20th of 2025, when the next president is going to take office. I know what the Democrats would like to do. They want to talk about all these other issues, but we've got to focus on your future. We've got to focus on reversing the decline of our country.
Right.
I learned in the military, I was assigned with U.S. Navy SEALs in Iraq, that you focus on the mission above all else. You can't get distracted. So Republicans, we've got to look forward, and we've got to make sure that we're bringing the message
We
that can
need
win
strength.
in November
We
2020.
need energy. We need
Vice President Brown,
strenergy.
What do you
the
think,
United
Vice
States
President?
is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I think the American people deserve to know whether everyone on this stage agrees that I kept my oath to the Constitution that day.
Well,
there's no more important duty. So answer the question.
I've answered this before.
Be
So, yeah,
straightforward,
why are
you
Mike
cowards.
did his duty. I got no beef with him, but here's the thing: is this what we're going to be focusing on
I'm relieved.
going forward? The rehashing of this? I'll tell you,
Governor
the
DeSantis.
Democrats
He
would
doesn't
love that.
want
We
to
should
address
win
it. He
if we
doesn't.
let him get away
I
with
bet
it.
Trump's loving this.
Hang out in the basement this time. We're going to run him ragged around this country, and we're going to hold him accountable.
Let me just say, Governor DeSantis, we spent an hour talking about policy. Former President Trump is beating you by 30, 40 points in many polls. So it is a factor in the GOP primary. Governor Hutchinson, you did not raise your hand.
I did not raise my hand because there's an important issue we as a party have to face. And over a year ago, I said that Donald Trump was morally disqualified from being president again as a result of what happened on January 6th. More people are understanding the importance of that, including conservative legal scholars who says he may be disqualified under the 14th Amendment from being president again as a result of the insurrection. This is something that could disqualify him under our rules.
It's true.
And under the Constitution.
It's true.
And so, obviously, I'm not going to support somebody who's been convicted of a serious felony or who is disqualified under our Constitution, and that's consistent with RNC rules. And I hope everybody would agree with me.
We're going to get you a lot more time. We're going to move on. No, we're going to.
Martha, can I answer the question?
Can I get in on that?
Okay, I'd like to answer.
I've already been in on it, Vice President Pence.
All right, I'd like to answer the question you asked and not give a pre-canned speech. Mike Pence stood for the Constitution, and he deserves
Mike's like,
not
yeah, I
grudging
did.
credit. He deserves our thanks as Americans for putting his oath of office and the Constitution of the United States before personal, political, and unfair pressure. And the argument that we need to have in this party before we can move on to the issues that Ron talked about is we have to dispense with the person who said that we need to suspend the Constitution to put forward his political career.
Talk about his
Mike
crimes.
Pence said no, and he deserves credit for
Talk
it.
about his indictments.
Governor Haley, we haven't heard from you on this. Do you agree? Do you agree that Vice President Pence did the right thing that day or not?
I do think that Vice President Pence did the right thing, and I do think that we need to give him credit for that. But what I will also tell you is, look, I mean, when it comes to whether President Trump should serve or not, I trust the American people. Let them vote. Let them decide. But what they will tell you is that it is time for a new generational conservative leader. We have to look at the fact
disappointed.
that
Nobody said woke
three-quarters
yet.
of Americans don't want a rematch between Trump and Biden. And we have to face the fact that Trump is the most disliked politician in America. We can't win a general election that way.
Yeah, that's true.
Dr. Burgum.
It's Governor Burgum opportunity.
Happy to answer the question. Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th. But I want to say, you started off the top of this hour saying we're going to talk about China, Ukraine, education. We are. China is the #1 threat to our country, and every minute that these 8 candidates spend talking about the past instead about the future is time that is just you know who loves it? Biden loves it, but China loves it when we're talking about the past.
Okay, as promised,
God, to
we
be
were
in
going
that
to
room.
spend a few questions on it, let people say what they wanted to say, and now, indeed, we are moving on to the subject
The
of
U.S. has committed nearly 77.
Can I speak on this issue? I was
You
kind of
did
involved.
you answered on this.
You did,
You did
say
answer.
something.
Yeah.
We thought you were done, but you
No, I
please.
wasn't done.
Well, Mike, why don't you say this? Join me in making a
Hold on.
commitment that on day one you would pardon Donald Trump. I'm the only candidate on the stage.
Oh,
But
no,
say,
dude.
that is how
Are
we
you
move
kidding
our
me?
nation Forward
I don't know
and
why
turn the page
Are you
Donald
forward.
joking?
Trump will be convicted of these crimes.
You should
Yes.
be able to make a commitment. The same justice system that was this
Vivek,
corrupt.
Here's the difference between you and me.
Yeah, I'm not a
I've
professional
actually-
politician. That's the
I've
difference. Who can answer a
actually,
question?
I've actually given pardons when I was governor of the state of Indiana. It usually follows a finding of guilt and contrition by the individual that's been convicted. So, look, if I'm president of the United States, we'll give fair consideration to any pardon request. But if I may, you know, it's not about looking back at January 2021. It's about January 20th, 2017. I put my left hand on Ronald Reagan's Bible. I raised my right hand. And I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
I wish there was
And it
a
ended
fly
with
on his
prayer,
head right
so
now.
help me God. It was a promise that I made to the American people, but I also made it to my Heavenly Father. Every day for 4 years, I sought to keep that oath. And everyone on this stage needs to make it clear whether or not they'll do the same if they earn this job and the confidence of the American people. Now, look, I've made it clear. I had hoped that the issues surrounding the 2020 election and the controversies around January 6th had not come to this, had not come to criminal proceedings. I would rather they had been resolved by the American people and the American people alone. But no one's above the law. And President Trump is entitled to the presumption of innocence that every American is entitled to. And we will make sure and extend that to him. But the American people deserve to know that the president asked me in his request that I reject or return votes unilaterally, power that no vice president in American history had ever exercised or taken. He asked me to put him over the Constitution. And I chose the Constitution, and I always will. I had no right to overturn the election, and Kamala Harris will have no right to overturn the election when we beat them in 2024.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
All right, as if they'll have any fucking
Now we are
reason
moving
to
on
do that.
to other issues. The U.S. has committed nearly $77 billion in aid to the Ukraine war. The administration is
All
now
right, time
asking
to talk
Congress
about
for
Ukraine, I
$24 billion
suppose.
more. Regardless of that, the specifics of that plan, is there anyone on stage who would not support the increase of more funding to Ukraine?
We would
not support it.
Europe needs to step up. I mean, I would have Europe step up and do their job.
Mr. Ramaswamy, but you're saying you would not too, Governor DeSantis?
I will have Europe pull their weight. Right now, they're not doing that.
You would not support
and I think
more
we need
funding?
to do,
No to me.
and I think our support should be contingent on them doing it. And I would have support in China to be able to take China and do what we need to do with China.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine?
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protecting against an invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States of America.
Oh,
we are
God.
driving Russia further
Ooh,
into
the
China's
boogeyman of
hands.
immigration.
The Russia-China alliance is the single greatest threat we face. And I find it offensive that we have professional politicians on the stage that will make a pilgrimage to Kyiv, to their Pope, Zelensky, without doing the same thing for people in Maui or the south side of Chicago or Kensington. I think that we have to put the interests
He's
of
not wrong, but you
Americans
can literally
first.
do both.
Secure
You can
our
do
own
both.
border
You can
instead
do
of
it
somebody
all at the
else's.
same time.
And the reality is, this is also how we project strength by making America strong at home.
All right, we heard the names. Governor Christie first.
All right, look, I did go to Ukraine, and I went to Ukraine because I wanted to see for myself what Vladimir Putin's army was doing to the free Ukrainian people. And let me tell you, I want you all to look around this arena tonight and imagine that every one of these seats was filled. And if every one of them was filled, there would still be 2,500 more children outside to make over 20,000 who have been abducted, stolen, ripped from their mothers and fathers, and brought back to Russia to be programmed to fight their own families. They have gouged out people's eyes, cut off their ears, and shot people in the back of the head, men, and then gone into those homes and raped the daughters and the wives who were left as widows and orphans. This is the Vladimir Putin. This is the Vladimir Putin who Donald Trump called brilliant and a genius. If we don't stand up against this type
now he's nailing it.
of autocratic
He's nailing it. He's nailing it.
in the world, we will be next.
He's making Ramaswamy look like a fucking total dork. Like, he makes him look like a fucking idiot.
Yeah, well, let me be clear. Anybody that thinks that we can't solve the problems here in the United States and be the leader of the free world has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth.
That is incorrect.
We can do both, Vivek. We've done both.
That's what I'm saying,
We've been the leader of the
Mike.
free world and the arsenal of democracy for years. The Reagan Doctrine years ago made it clear. We said, if you're willing to fight the communists on your soil, we'll give you the means to fight them there so our troops don't have to fight them. Vivek, if we do the giveaway that you want to give to Putin to give him his land, it's not going to be too long before he rolls across a NATO border, and frankly, our men and women of our armed forces are going to have to go and fight him. I want to let the Ukrainians fight and drive Putin and the Russians back out
He's
into Russia.
right. Mike's right.
Vice President Pence, I have a newsflash. The USSR does not exist anymore. It fell back in 1990.
We're not talking about the USSR, you stupid
and the real
fuck.
communists that we have to address right now
have any idea what Vladimir Putin's aims are?
You already spoke. Now I actually have something to say.
Vladimir Putin has been saying he wants to reestablish the old Soviet sphere
You've made
of
your point,
influence.
Vice
President. He's right.
Insulted
It's
him
true.
by calling him a communist. He is a dictator and a murderer. And the United States of America needs to stand against authoritarianism.
Mr. Ramaswamy, 30 seconds. Respond.
Really?
The threat we face today is
We need to
communist
stand
China.
against
And we are driving Russia
authoritarianism,
further
Mike?
into China's
Okay.
arms.
What are you doing in the
Russia-China
Republican Party?
military alliance is the single greatest threat we face. Nobody in either political party is talking about it. And I am the only non-neocon on this stage. But keep us out of war.
Mr. Vice President, we can't hear. Mr. Vice President,
is to give Russia everything they've got.
Mr. Vice President,
give them a promise that Ukraine will never be in NATO, and then somehow
Mr. Vice President,
China will not think about taking Taiwan. We achieve peace through strength.
Mr. Vice
and
President,
America needs to stand for freedom.
Okay.
Here we go.
I think we need to establish some ground rules here,
When we
folks.
hear this bell,
Yes.
that means your time's done. So,
Yeah,
Mr.
Mike-
Vice President,
Mike
we
nailed
appreciate
it
your
there.
aggressiveness
Mike Pence
here.
actually
30
looks
seconds
pretty
is 30
good right there.
seconds. Mr. Ramaswamy, you
The
were
best
mentioned. You
so
get 30
far.
seconds.
I mean, the rest of the debate hasn't looked very good.
That today, Ukraine is not a priority for the United States of America. And I think that the same people who took us into the Iraq War, the same people who took us into the Vietnam War, you cannot start another no-win war. And I do not want to get to the point where we're sending our military resources abroad when we could be better using them here at home to protect our own borders, protect the homeland.
All right.
That will be my top priority in foreign
I
policy.
think we gave you
protect
more
this
than the 30
homeland.
seconds in the rebut. So I do want to get to some other people because everybody, we respect everybody's time here. So, Governor Haley, you did not raise your hand, meaning that you would support more funding for the Ukraine war. You have said of Governor DeSantis that you didn't appreciate it when he initially called it a territorial dispute. Why?
First of all, the American president needs to have moral clarity. They need to know the difference between right and wrong. They need to know the difference between good and evil. Right. When you look at the situation with Russia and Ukraine, here you have a pro-American country that was invaded by a thug. So when you want to talk about what has been given to Ukraine, less than 3.5% of our defense budget has been given to Ukraine. If you look at the percentages per GDP, 11 of the European countries have given more than the U.S. But what's really important is go back to when China and Russia held hands, shook hands before the Olympics, and named themselves unlimited partners. A win for Russia is a win for China. We have to know that. Ukraine is the first line of defense for us. And the problem that Vivek doesn't understand is he wants to hand Ukraine to Russia. He wants to let China eat Taiwan. He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends. What you do instead is you have the backs of your friends. Ukraine is the front line of defense. Putin has said once Russia takes Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. That's a world war. We're trying to prevent war. Look at what Putin did today. He killed Prigozhin. When I was at the UN, the Russian ambassador suddenly died. This guy is a murderer, and you are choosing a murderer over a pro-American country.
First of all, Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 30 seconds. Mr. DeSantis,
Nikki, I wish you well in your future career on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon.
You know, I'm not on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon. And you know,
Boeing came off of it, but you've been pushing this lie. You've been pushing this lie all week, Nikki.
You want to go and defund Israel? You want to give
let me address
Taiwan to
that.
China?
I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm going to
address each of those right now. This is the false lies of a professional politician. There you have it.
Your watch,
so the reality
make America less safe. You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows.
And you know what? The foreign policy experience that you all have shows in the pointless wars we've gotten into. I have to address that. So our relationship with Israel will never be stronger than by the end of my first term. But it's not a client relationship. It is a friendship. And you know what friends do? Friends help each other stand on their own 2 feet. So I will lead Abraham Accords 2.0. I will partner with Israel to make sure Iran never is nuclear armed. But you know what I love about Israel? And I've been there probably in the last 10 years more than most people on this stage. You know what I love about them? I love their border policies. I love their tough on crime policies. I love that they have a national identity and an Iron Dome to protect their homeland.
How?
And so, yes, I want to
How
learn
is this
from
guy
the
making
friends
himself
that we're
even
supporting.
more
And
and
what
more
puzzles me-
unlikable?
No, I want to learn from those and apply those to protect our homeland, Nikki.
Israel
That is
needs
the answer.
America. America needs Israel.
Okay.
So Vivek loves just terrorizing people trying to just have a better life.
Not only
If he would adopt Israel's policies under like a term,
first obligation,
like his presidential term, it would be like literally genocidal.
Its people, and that means you're sending all this money, but you're not doing what we need to do to secure our own border. We have tens of thousands of people who are being killed because we're not handling both. And so I am going to
Nikki Haley is right. She's right, and she's pissed, and she knows that they're full of
I'm going to
shit.
send them to our southern border. When these drug pushers are bringing fentanyl across the border, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to use force, and we're going to leave them stone cold dead.
We're actually going to move on to China.
All dead.
We're going to talk
Okay,
about China.
but
Okay.
God, just a bunch
China
of
has
just
the biggest navy
serial
in the world,
killers
the
on
biggest
stage.
army in the world. Now they have warships off the coast of Alaska. They are threatening Taiwan. In coming years, China will have 1,500 nuclear warheads, it's believed. The U.S. just arrested two sailors accused of spying for China
they had like
within
300.
our military.
That's insane.
So the question is, how would you deter China as a president, Berger?
Well, this is the #1 issue we're facing. And of course, we haven't been talking about it, and we act like that letting Russia win in the Ukraine is like a gimme as opposed to a gift to China. Russia has become China's gas station. But how would we do it? The Biden administration is a complete fail. China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day, more than any other country in the world. They do not even have all the food they need to feed everybody in that country, so they don't have energy security or food security. But the Biden administration sends Blinken, Yellen over there. They're over there talking. They don't even bring up energy because they're too busy trying to kill the U.S. energy here. And what we need to do is not meetings, not press releases, because something that would send a lot more than a press release is actually Harpoon missiles. We need anti-ship missiles on Taiwan. The way that you have a war never start, which is the goal, the way you have peace through strength
it's all
is that you
deterrence.
actually have strength. You actually have
It's
deterrence.
all-
And what we have in
Took the
what
words
we've
right out
got
of my
going
mouth.
on in Ukraine is an example of when deterrence fail. What is an example there of Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan? The fact that he
It's all
greenlighted
just
Putin
dick
moving into
swinging.
Ukraine,
It's all
and
just
then now
chest
they see
bumping.
weakness, and when they see weakness, they make a move.
It's
and
just
we
flexing.
have to make strong.
That's
and we
all
have
it
to be
is.
strong both in Ukraine.
Neither
and
the
we can
United
solve
States
the
nor
southern border.
China actually
Absolutely, we
want
can
to
do
war
that.
with one another.
Because guess what? There's only
This is all just fear-mongering.
19,855 authorized people for the Border Patrol, but they're not all staff because the Biden administration doesn't enforce law enforcement. But Biden administration wanted to put 87,000 people in the IRS as opposed to giving the money and the support we need to our own Border Patrol.
Okay.
Right on.
Senator Scott, on China, that same question.
Can I speak about China?
Let's fire the 87,000 IRS agents and hire or double the number of Border Patrol agents. I just left Yuma, Arizona
Says a lot they don't
about
like
2
the
weeks
IRS.
ago. The most pressing need of the American people from a national security standpoint is our southern border. It has led to the death of 70,000 Americans because of fentanyl. Plus,
They're not
6
coming- it's
million
not coming for
illegal
the southern border,
crossings
dude.
Since President Biden has taken office, and
It's being flown
200
in.
people on
Americans
our
are
national
bringing it
security
in.
watch list have been caught at our border. How many have not been caught at our southern border? If we just spend $10 billion, we could finish the wall. For $5 billion more, we could have the military-grade technology to
Okay,
surveil our southern border to stop the flow of fentanyl. And
Fentanyl's
save
not coming from the southern border.
70,000 Americans.
The majority of it is
a year.
actually being
That should be
brought in
the
by
priority
Americans
of this
legally.
government. And as the next president of the United States, I will make that border wall complete.
There are many
Well,
more
not,
questions on
it's
China.
not being brought in
I do wanna
legally, but
ask
the
about-
way it's being brought in
It's not just the 70,000 from fentanyl. We've lost
It's not coming from
200,000 people to
immigrants.
overdoses since Biden took office. That's 300 people a day. We're taking mass casualties, and that's a statistic, but these are sons and daughters, nieces and nephews that we're losing. We've got North Dakota troops down there flying night helicopter missions from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop these transnational criminal organizations. They've got better funding on their side than we've got on our side.
Speaking of which, Governor Hutchinson, speaking of which, images from
Better
earlier
funding
this
on the
month,
Mexican
Governor
side? Is that what
Hutchinson,
you're saying? Because that's
Vice
total
President
bullshit.
Pence, images from earlier this month. Vice President Pence, it really doesn't help. I'm asking a question. Earlier this month, images showed suspected cartel members crossing into Texas with rifles. Do you consider this an invasion? Would you authorize lethal force along that border?
There would be lethal force used by the Border Patrol, law enforcement as needed to protect the border. Absolutely. When you look at the military has to be used for intelligence gathering purposes. This is not unusual.
If you're watching this, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe.
We went down there and met with President Vicente Fox of Mexico and asked his help in going after the cartels. And he looked at me and said, they're a problem to us as well. And so we joined together and we took down the Ariana Felix brothers leading the Tijuana cartel. And that made a difference. Ramon was shot and killed and Ben Amin was captured. Cooperation makes a difference. We cannot be successful going against the cartel unless we bring in Mexico as a partner. We have to use economic pressure to accomplish that. President Obrador has not been helpful, and we have to use economic pressure that this administration is not using. The rule of law has to matter on both sides of it.
Okay.
This is critical. I've done it. We know what needs to be done. The military has to be limited in its use. When after 9/11, we had the global war on terror, and guess what? We protected the border at the same time. You can do both.
Okay, let's go to Governor DeSantis. So, as president, would you support sending U.S. Special Forces over the border into Mexico to take out fentanyl labs, to take out drug cartel operations? Would you support that kind of American military use?
Yes, and I will do it on day one. Here's the thing.
The way he talks, it's like a. He
Cartels
sounds
are
like a
killing
whiny child.
Tens of thousands of our
If you're watching, like and subscribe, please.
Klein, you have the cartels controlling a lot of part of your southern.
Also, thanks for joining. It means a lot. Like, subscribe.
And we have to defend our people. The President of the United States has got to use all available powers as Commander-in-Chief to protect our country and to protect the people. So when they're coming across, yes, we're going to use lethal force. Yes, we reserve the right to operate.
Yeah,
how many
how
more
unlike
tens
a
of
fascist.
thousands are we going to let to die? I am sick. I've met angel moms throughout this country. I met a lady in Texas
This
named
guy
Tracy.
acts like
and her
the
son
thousands of border
took
crossings per
one
day are just
Percocet
all
that
thugs
was laced
armed
with fentanyl,
with drugs to bring across
immediately
the border.
died. That is happening
Oh,
all across
these
this country
people are
because of the
clueless.
poison that they are bringing in. So as president, would I use force? Would I treat them as foreign terrorist organizations? You're darn right I would.
You're darn right I would.
Vice President Pence, why would you be better at this issue than
Ron
Governor
DeSantis would be
Governor
adorable
DeSantis
if
on
he
the
wasn't
campaign trail
such just a
refers to your
menacing, evil,
administration as
maniacal,
not finishing the
dangerous
war.
motherfucker.
Right. Look, we secured the southern border of the United States of America and reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. When Joe Biden took over, he threw open the southern border of the United States, and the wave of humanity, the wave of fentanyl that's been eloquently described here is,
Like I
is
said,
a wave
fentanyl
of
is not
human
coming from the
tragedy
southern
across this
border
country. But
like
Martha, you
they say
began
it
this
is. It's being
evening
brought in
talking
by
about who
Americans.
is best
It's being
prepared
flown
to be
in.
the next president of the United States. And I have to tell you, with all humility, I was there when we negotiated through the government shutdown and got the funding available to build the wall. I was negotiating on Capitol Hill around the clock. I negotiated the Remain in Mexico policy on behalf of the President of the United States. And Asa, you're so right. It's because we used economic pressure to bring the Mexicans to the table, and they allowed us to have people wait in Mexico while they applied for asylum. It ended asylum abuse overnight. We got the Mexicans to deploy their National Guard to their southern border and to our southern border as never before. And I want to promise you, as President of the United States of America, I will engage Mexico the exact same way, and we will partner with the Mexican military, and we will hunt down and destroy the cartels that are claiming lives in the United States of America.
Okay, thank you. Another issue that is
noble
related
cause,
to this
Mr. Vice
is
President.
that almost 7 million migrants have crossed this border, our southern border, during the Biden administration. So, Governor Christie, what would you do about the 7 million who are here? How would you handle them? What would you do?
Look, Martha, the first thing we need to do is to stop any more from coming. That's the first thing we need to do. Then the next thing we need to do with the folks that are here is to, again, as we've talked about all night tonight, we have to have law and order in this country. We have to enforce the law. And what that means is to make sure that people who come here illegally are not rewarded for being here illegally. We have so many wonderful people from around the world who are waiting in line, following the law to try to come here and pursue the American dream.
Some of them are waiting years.
And those people are waiting and waiting and
Loosen
waiting
up asylum
because
seeking.
we haven't dealt with the problem of the folks who are here. We have to have them detained. We have to make sure that they are not rewarded for having broken the law. And one last thing on this fentanyl issue. With China, we can't take our eye off of that ball. Yes, it's important that we secure the border. Very important, as I just said. But China is sending these chemicals to these drug cartels for them to create the fentanyl that is killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens. The Chinese are engaging in an act of war against us, killing our citizens. We better make that priority one in our conversations with China and to try to straighten that relationship out, because if we don't, we're going to lose more and more of our citizens.
I just want to clarify, would you send those people back?
Of course. You'd have to.
We have a lot of issues that Americans care about. Next up, we're going to talk about the crisis in education, as millions of American children are not proficient in reading or math after this.
Yeah. Oh, you don't say. Yeah, no, what it comes down to is, the immigration issue could be remedied by a metric ton if just drugs were legalized and regulated. That's it. You literally you get rid of the power that the cartels have. You get rid of the power that China has, because a lot of fentanyl is actually coming from China. So whether or not it's like being sent through Mexico is up in the air. I wouldn't doubt it, but a lot of it is actually being flown in or being brought in like by Americans themselves. What's going on here?
Was the first one up and the only one up.
Okay, it's just analysis. But yeah, no. If you legalize cocaine, if you legalize heroin, if you actually like legalize or regulate the drugs that are actually coming over illegally, you literally diminish any power that the cartels have south of the border, and that solves your issue because of these drugs. That's what creates the violence south of the border. That's what creates the cartel violence. That's why so many people are fleeing these countries, Mexico and of course Central America, Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, all that. But if these drugs are legalized, that hits them hard, you know. You don't really have to run away from cartel violence because of the trade of these drugs. Of course it's illegal, and the power that these cartels have, they have strangleholds over so many different towns, in these countries, and that's why so many people are fleeing and coming to America to escape the violence, to escape being caught and persecuted by these cartels. You can literally put a damper on the immigration coming into this country from the southern border if you just legalize and regulate these drugs. It's really simple, but we won't do it. It's not even going to be brought up because, oh no, drugs are fucking bad. Because these people are fucking stupid. I'm going to grab my food real quick. I'll be right back. Alright, where am I putting this? Bro, these kids can't read or do math because he's being shot up. That's pretty dark, Drew. That's pretty dark.
School children, exposing chronic absenteeism, deep declines for reading and math for 15-year-olds and 13-year-olds. Governor DeSantis, you would eliminate, you said, the Department of Education. But as president, would you still have a responsibility to fix this crisis as we see it?
Absolutely. The decline in education is one of the major reasons why our country is in decline. We need education in this country, not indoctrination in this country. And in Florida, we stood up for what was right. First, we had schools open during COVID, and a lot of the problems that we've seen are because these lockdown states lock their kids out of school for a year, year and a half. That was wrong. We stood up. I took a lot of fire for that. I was pilloried by the media, but I stood for our kids. And as president, I'll stand for you and your kids as well. But we have to make sure that what our schools are doing is focusing on solid academics. In Florida, we eliminated critical race theory from our K-12 schools. We eliminated gender ideology from our K-12 schools. And we have elevated the importance of American civics in teaching our kids about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. As president, I'm going to lead an effort to increase civic understanding and knowledge of our Constitution. We cannot be graduating students that don't have any foundation in what it means to be an American.
Mr. Ramaswamy, hold on, Senator Scott. You've said that the Department of Education, the FBI, the ATF, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the IRS, the Department of Commerce, many of these should not exist.
That's correct.
So to the education question, how would you deal with the crisis?
So look, we have a crisis of achievement. Let's shut down the head of the snake, the Department of Education. Take that $80 billion, put it in the hands of parents across this country. This is the civil rights issue of our time. Allow any parent to choose where they send their kids to school. End the teachers' unions at the local level to allow public schools to compete. And then revive our national identity where every high school senior
not women's rights being stripped away, not trans people being under attack in several states.
Including my mother, had to pass in order to become a citizen of this country. And the fact of the matter is, look, there's a part of education policy that also rests with the family. I didn't grow up in money, but you know the word privilege gets used a lot? Well, you know what? I did have the ultimate privilege of 2 parents in the house with a focus on educational achievement. And I want every kid to enjoy that. So part of the problem is we also have a federal government that pays single women more not to have a man in the house than to have a man in the house, contributing to an epidemic of fatherlessness. And I think that goes hand in glove with the education crisis as well, because we have to remember education starts with the family, and the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to mankind.
Okay.
Governor Burgum, Governor Haley has said that biological boys playing in girls' sports is the women's issue of our time. You said that even though you signed a ban on this in North Dakota, that there hadn't been one instance where it was actually needed. Are you saying that you think that too much is made of this issue?
No, I'm saying in North Dakota, we made a priority of protecting women's sports, and we've done that in our state. But I would absolutely do that. But I do think when we start talking about education and we think that we're going to have a federal government one size fits all, we're just completely losing track of the fact that education differs by states. Some school districts are doing a fantastic job, some less so. But the idea that every school district, state, and every teacher is somehow indoctrinating people is just false. You know, when I was building a company
oh my
from
God,
scratch,
a sensible
with small town
fucking
kids,
take
and we
for
went,
once.
grew up in a town of 300, but we built a global company in 132 countries with over 100,000 customers. We listened to those customers. We spent time with them. We talked to them. We did that. And as governor, well, education is one of the biggest part of a state budget. So as a governor, I shadow a student. I don't, the night before I find out the student finds out, I'm going to go to every class with them. I don't sit and lecture school districts how to do it. I go and see the experience. And there's a lot of things that have to change. But what needs to change in education is it's innovation. We're doing it the same way we did it 50 years ago with innovation, not regulation. I would get rid of the Department of Education. I would give block grants to schools, but I'd give them on merit based on who's doing the most innovative. I just got done holding the 7th annual Governor's Conference on Innovation Education.
You know,
You should see
Eyebrows
what the people are doing
was
when you
basically
get,
a nobody
cut loose the
going
red
into
tape,
this
get the
debate,
burden
but
off their
listening
back.
to him,
They care. Teachers
he's
in this
actually
country,
like the most
vast
sensible one
majority
on
of them
stage.
care about those kids. They're working in low-paying jobs.
For
and
a
they're
Republican.
fighting for those kids and their families.
Governor Haley, you said that this is the women's issue of our time.
First, I'll tell you, as you know, as a parent, the one thing you want is for your child to have a better life than you did. And we can talk about all of these things, and there's a lot of crazy woke things happening in schools.
There's the first woke of the night!
By 3rd grade, they're 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So we need to make sure we bring in reading remediation all over this
Bingo,
country.
motherfucker!
We need transparency in the classroom because parents
Thanks,
should
Nikki.
never have to wonder what's being said or taught to their children in the classroom. Parents
It only
need to
took
be
an hour and
deciding
40
which
minutes.
schools their kids go to because they know best. And let's put vocational classes back into the high schools. Let's teach our kids to build things again. When we do that and we allow that
Gosh, she's so
innovation,
stupid.
that's when it'll get back. And yes, I will always say I'm going to fight for girls all day long because strong girls become strong women become strong leaders, and biological boys don't belong in the locker rooms of any of our girls.
Oh my God! You're so stupid.
And the first question is going to go to you, Vice President. So this is a lightning round of questions, 30-second answers, please. President Biden will be 82 years old on Inauguration Day. Nearly 70% of Americans say that he is too old to serve. Should presidents have to pass a mental and physical test in order to serve, Vice President Pence?
Well, it might be a good idea to have everybody in Washington, D.C. pass a mental and...
That's a good idea. That's a great idea, Mike.
No,
Good on you.
American people can make those judgments. But let me say, I'm running for president of the United States because we don't need a president who's too old, and we don't need a president who's too young. We need a president who's been there. We need a president who knows how Congress works.
That's
how
a
the
shot
White
at
House
Vivek.
works, how states work.
Vivek,
And on
whatever
this
the fuck his
education
name is.
issue, Martha, I was fighting against No Child Left Behind when Republicans were doubling the Department of Education. I'll also shut down the Federal Department of Education. And when I was governor, we doubled the size of the largest school choice program in America. And we'll give school choice to every family in America when I'm in the White House.
This is a lightning round, Mr. Ramaswamy. I think you were mentioned there. You're 38. You're the youngest on the stage. You've said, and you just said, you want a civics test or public service for those under 25 to be able to vote. vote. So the question is, do you want a mental acuity test for presidents over 75?
I believe in the people of this country to tell the difference between somebody who's an automaton and somebody who's actually a thinking agent in the White House, which we don't have in there today. And I will tell you, I want to address Vice President Pence's comment. I think we do need somebody of a different generation to lead this nation forward. Look at the way I've run this campaign. Going to the south side of Chicago, to Kensington, in the middle of Philadelphia, where traditional Republican candidates don't go. We have an opportunity to build a multi-ethnic, working-class majority to deliver a landslide, and I think I'm the only candidate in this race, young or old, black or white, to bring all of those voters along to deliver a Reagan 1980 revolution.
Oh, God, don't compare yourself to Reagan.
In a presidential election until 20.
I will answer that. I will answer that.
30 seconds.
30-second quick answer.
You guys have to get control of this debate.
Everybody's going to get a chance to get
Listen,
control
we're
of this
getting
debate.
control of the debate. This is a lightning round, not rolling thunder. Governor Hutchinson, you have 30 seconds on the same question.
On education, first of all, look at Arkansas. We have to compete with China. I built computer science education. We led the nation in computer science education, going from 1,100 students to 23,000 students taking it. This is how you compete with China. As President of the United States, I will make sure we go from 51% of our schools offering computer science to every school in rural areas and urban areas offering computer science for the benefit of our kids. And we can compete with China in terms of technology.
Thank you, sir. This is going to go to...
I'm just kidding. I have no idea what I'm saying.
We're trying to do a quick round of different topics here.
That's nice, though. That's a nice
Senator
gesture,
Scott,
Asa Hutchinson.
Faith is on
That's
decline
nice.
in this country. You talked
Oh, I
about
forgot
it
this
a
guy
little
was
bit
here.
before tonight. So is there a role for a president of the United States in changing that? What would you do to change that?
Well, our nation was founded upon the Judeo-Christian values that has made this the greatest nation on
That
God.
is a lie. We were founded on
Ephesians 3:20,
secularism.
that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or imagine. Our responsibility should be to model the behavior we want others to follow. On education, the only way we change education in this nation is to break the backs of the teachers' unions. They are standing
I've gone through 7
in the
shop
doorhouse
classes
of
tonight.
our kids,
And
locking
woke has
them
only been said
into
once.
failing schools and locking them out of the greatest future they could have.
As President, Governor DeSantis, would you support some mandatory military service for all Americans?
I think it should be voluntary. I'm somebody that volunteered to serve, inspired by September 11th.
Voluntary
and I
is the
deployed
right
to Iraq,
answer. Wow, I
alongside
agree
US
with
Navy
him.
SEALs in places like Fallujah, Ramadi. And it's something that I think has taught me, you know, when you go in that type of environment, anything you have, your personal agenda, you check it at the door. You go there, and it's about focusing on the mission above all else. And guys come together, and they get it done. And that's how I would view being the President of the United States. It's not about me. It's not about all these other side issues. My sole focus
Like and subscribe,
will be on
people. I
your
appreciate you
future
being here.
and reversing this country's decline.
Okay, now for something a little out of this world, and this is for you, Governor Christie. Do you believe that the recent spike in UFO encounters...
UFO question?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking the same thing, Chris. Why give Chris Christie the UFO
We've been
question?
hearing a lot of testimony in Congress, and people are taking this a lot more seriously, and we're hearing that, you know, there are things going on that people aren't aware of.
He's like, are you fucking shitting me right now? What a
Governor
joke.
Christie, would you level with the American people about what the government knows about these possible encounters?
Martha, and especially coming from a woman from New Jersey, I think it's horrible that just because I'm from New Jersey, you asked me about unidentified flying objects and Martians. We're different, but we're not that different. Look, of course, the job of the President of the United States is to level with the American people about everything. The job of the President of the United States is to stand for truth. The job of the President of the United States is to be a role model for our children and our grandchildren. And so whether it was UFOs or this problem of education, and Tim's right, by the way, and I started this in 2010 by going right after the teachers' unions in New Jersey and drove them
He
down to
hates
an
those
all-time
teachers'
low popularity
unions.
rating because they were putting
How
themselves
dare
before
those
our
teachers
kids.
wanting to be paid what
Is the
they're
biggest
worth?
threat to our country, not UFOs.
Oh, God. Chris Christie did great this debate, but he's still a piece of shit.
Plus, right after the debate, Hannity is live from the spin room right here.
Oh, God, don't care about that.
With reaction from all the candidates.
Oh.
As soon as they step off the stage, we'll be back after this.
Man, oh, man. Was that it? Or do we... Okay, so we...
Well, the lightning round turned into the thunder
We still got
round.
another 10 minutes, so they're probably going to do like a little wrap-up.
Changes there on education and that lightning round.
Be like, this is why you should vote for me.
Much time. Tammy, anything changes
turn this
your
the
mind?
fuck down. Yeah, more than likely they're gonna have a little just like wrap up, and like each of the 8 fucking candidates gonna be like, this is why you should vote for me for president. And yeah, goddamn, yeah, none of these people at all are deserving of becoming president. I will say, eyebrows, Doug on the right, Doug the North Dakota governor, actually like somewhat kind of reasonable for like, even though he's a fucking Republican, there's no chance in hell that he's one going to win or two going to win my vote. But actually has some decent takes. Like actually, I mean the bar is so fucking low, but some of the shit he was saying was actually like somewhat reasonable. It's like, yeah, you actually get it. You actually understand this and that. It's like, yeah, it's not saying much, but yeah, I would say the Chris Christie was probably like the best performer tonight. Doug, what's his name? Eyebrows, probably the runner-up. And I would say maybe Nikki Haley, probably like third best performer tonight. Vivek Ramaswamy was the fucking worst, and like it says a lot that like these hosts right here were saying, oh, like I'm buying Vivek, I'm selling Pence, but Pence actually ended up looking better than Ramaswamy tonight, like by a pretty large margin. Like Ramaswamy embarrassed the absolute shit out of himself tonight. But that's part and parcel for being a fucking libertarian and an entrepreneur, and yeah. But yeah, so Ramaswamy was the worst tonight. Christie and Doug Eyebrows, what's his name, from North Dakota, are probably tied for like the best tonight. And Nikki Haley had some great moments as well. All right, I need a shot. Like I did 7 so far, and woke was only said once. Thank you, Nikki Haley. I really appreciate that. I was actually expecting a whole lot more horse shit foaming at the mouths of multiple people here, especially DeSantis. DeSantis actually didn't do so bad tonight.
The guy who's in second to Trump, Ron DeSantis.
It's true. Anybody chime in on this? Because
what a night.
It almost looks like Pence is annoyed. Like
it's about drive. It's about power.
Calm down with your lines. Work well on cable news.
It's about dick. It's about penis. Women from Mars, but I'm from Venus. Please tell me you've seen that, Drew. Have you seen the sus version of that song? I'm sure I've shown it to you.
Chris Christie went after her as well, so I do think Vivek is the target here, and it gives him an opportunity not only to take the punch, which he has, but he's punching back, and I think punching back effectively.
Oh God, they're doing apologetics for Ramaswamy. They really want Ramaswamy. They really want him.
Yeah, Sean. So we can push back and fight back, and he can't do it because no one's attacking him.
But Sean, why are they attacking? Why are they attacking Ramaswamy? Is it because his policies are so different than everyone else on the stage? Is it personal, or is it some coherent strategy?
No, I think it's an opportunity where they've been able to differentiate themselves from some of the things that he said, and so it opens up the door for the attack. You know, more so, and also listen, he's doubled his poll numbers in a matter of a month. He's on
after this debate, I wouldn't be surprised if Ramaswamy's numbers went down, because this was embarrassing. He looked like a fucking idiot. Nikki Haley and Mike fucking Pence made Ramaswamy look like a fucking moron.
This is an issue about experience. It's an issue about adults in the room. And I've come out of this. I was ambivalent about Vivek. I'm not liking him tonight. So I think that they've.
Yeah, I agree. She's right.
We've got about 5 minutes left in the debate, and we'll be right back for final grades. Back to the debate.
A live look at the Reagan Library as the sun sets in Simi Valley, California. We'll see you there next month when our colleagues at Fox Business host the next 2024 Showdown.
Fox Business is
Simi
partnering
Valley.
with Univision, the Reagan Foundation, and Rumble to bring you the second Republican presidential debate on September 27th. It looks pretty.
September
nice.
27th. I can
20
do
years
that.
ago, 70%
I can do that.
of American
That's a few
adults
days after the
said they
Folsom
were
Street Fair.
extremely proud
I'm
to be an American.
looking forward to both.
That number
Not
has now
equally,
plummeted
though.
to
Not
just
even close.
39%. In his pitch to get to the Oval Office, President Reagan called America the shining city on a hill, a beacon of hope and optimism.
So in your closing statement tonight, please tell American voters why you are the person who can inspire this nation to a better day. These are 45 seconds, and we begin with Governor Burgum.
I understand why America's hurting. Biden's inflation is choking us. I grew up in a small town. My dad died when I was a freshman in high school. My mom, widow of 3, went back to work. Every job I had growing up was one where I took a shower at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the day.
Which is the right thing to
Our
do.
cities are less safe because
Why
of
the
fentanyl
hell?
pouring into this
Yeah,
country.
take a shower at the
Economy
end of the day.
is being crushed by Biden's energy policies, which are raising the cost of every product you buy, not just the gasoline at the pump. One thing that I'll do as president, I'll secure the border. I'll get this economy sprinting, not crawling like it is right now. And I would say that other thing is for sure, when I'm on a horseback in the Badlands of North Dakota, it looks like the horizon is just limitless. And when you can almost see
It must be
beyond that
gorgeous
horizon,
up there.
you can see that this great country, our future is unlimited. But we've got to focus on innovation, not regulation. We've got to cut the red tape. We've got to drive
All right,
ourselves
did you hear
forward.
the bell,
way we
dude?
win the
Wrap it
Cold War
up.
with China is by growing our economy and through innovation. And as president, I will bring out the best of America. I will improve every American life.
Well, we hope you're back on your horse soon, Governor.
Governor Hutchinson? Our nation is in trouble.
She likes
it's
horses.
in trouble because of failed leadership. And the solution is not
Please,
4 more
no
years
more
of Joseph
Arkansas
Biden.
politicians.
The solution
For the
is
love
not
of
4
God,
more years
Arkansas
of Donald
could
Trump.
fall off the
The
face of the earth.
solution is new leadership that can bring bold ideas to America and to bring out the best of America. A president's #1 responsibility is to bring out the best of our people. That's what Ronald Reagan did. And he did it with optimism and hope
That's
for
not
our
even
country with
true.
consistent conservatism.
Oh, God.
That's exactly what I bring.
Disgusting.
As president, I'll bring out the best of America in terms of
God,
individual
bringing up Ronald Reagan in any
responsibility,
sort of
building our
positive light
economy,
just makes me
in
want to
terms of
fucking
securing
vomit.
our border, enforcing the rule of law. I'll bring out the best of America in terms of our national character, our faith, and our hope for the future. Join in this fight. ASA2024.com.
Yeah, right.
Thank
Okay.
you, Senator Scott.
Hey, thanks,
Thank
Asa.
you. I was a disillusioned young man growing up in a single-parent household, mired in poverty. I wondered if the American dream was real for a kid like me. I can
Why
stand
are
before you
you
today
a
and say
Republican?
the dream is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. I had the good
Not
fortune of
even
a mom who worked
remotely
16-hour
close, dude.
days, making sure we have food on our tables. She taught me that if you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. If you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men.
Oh, no.
I'm Tim Scott. I'm asking you for your vote. And if you're in Iowa, I'm asking you to caucus for me. You can go to votetimscott.com for more information or to make a contribution.
Fucking stick it up your ass.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Martha. Look, everybody on this stage wants to be the next president of the United States. And the only way that's going to happen is if we beat Joe Biden. I'm the only one on this stage who's ever beaten a Democratic incumbent in an election. I did it in a deep blue state, being outspent 3-1. Beating a Democratic incumbent is not easy. The last Democratic incumbent president who was defeated was Jimmy Carter. And he was defeated by a conservative governor from a blue state who knew how to get results, who stood for the truth, who cared about accountability, and
Well, the
stood
first part was
strong and
true.
hard against waste. Those are the very things that I did in my 8 years as governor of New Jersey, and it's exactly what I'll do as president of the United States. Believe me, the Democrats want some other nominee who's never beaten the Democratic incumbent, I'm the one who can win this race, and if you give me the chance, I will restore our country by winning it.
Thank you. Governor
I don't know about that, dude. You got a better chance than probably everybody else on the stage, but...
Several weeks ago, I dropped my husband, Michael, a combat veteran from Afghanistan, off at 4 a.m. for another year-long deployment. I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they had never been, all in the name of protecting America. If they are
come the fuck on, dude.
We should be willing
Deliver
to
your
fight for
fucking
America
pizzas.
here. I will beat Joe Biden, and he knows that. I will strengthen our economy, and we'll bring this inflation down. We will put transparency in the classroom. We will secure our borders. We will have the backs of our law enforcement, and we will make sure we have a strong national security. And once again, we will make sure we have an America that is strong and proud. We have a country to save. Join us. Go to NikkiHaley.com, and let's get it done.
Yeah, whatever, Nikki.
Vice President Pence.
Thank you, Brad and Martha, for this evening. It's an honor to be here. Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad. The disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, their war on energy, runaway spending that launched the worst inflation in 40 years, a crisis at our southern border, an assault on our values and liberties, and the American people have had enough. But I know we can bring it back. But different times call for different leadership. The Republican Party owes the American people a choice. Proven leadership at the national level that knows how to move a conservative agenda forward. We proved in the Trump-Pence years you can turn this country around.
You're right.
Than you can imagine.
I'm grateful
And
for
I have
you
faith we will again.
actually tuning in and
Because I have
listening to
faith
this
in the
shit,
American
Drew.
people. The good, decent,
Shot
hard-working,
goes to you.
faith-filled, idealistic people of this country. And I have faith that God is not done with America yet. And if we will renew our faith in one another and renew our faith in Him who has ever guided this nation since we arrived on these wilderness shores, I know the best days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come.
Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy.
I was born in 1985, and I grew up into a generation where we were taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways we are really just the same as Americans, bound by a common set of ideals that set this nation into motion in 1776. And this is our moment to revive those common ideals. God is real. There are 2 genders. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity.
None of that is true.
Racism is racism. An open
That's
border
true.
is
Reverse
not
racism.
a border. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to man. Capitalism lifts us up from poverty. There are 3 branches of government, not 4. And the U.S. Constitution, it is the strongest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what will win us the revolution of 2024. Thanks for letting me introduce myself tonight. Thank you.
That's cute. Whatever.
Governor DeSantis.
God, this guy looks so fucking awkward.
Governor? This is our time for choosing. We will send Joe Biden back to his basement, and we will reverse the decline of this country. I'm a blue-collar kid. I work minimum wage jobs to be able to make ends meet. I understand the importance of the American dream, and I know how that's slipped away from so many millions of Americans. We'll restore it. I'm a veteran who served in Iraq. I know what it means to put service above
Didn't
self.
he, like,
I'm also a dad and a
override
husband to 6'5"
the
and
minimum
3-year-old.
wage being
I
increased in
understand
Florida
the importance of protecting
or something like
parents'
that?
rights and the well-being of our children. In Florida, we showed it could be done. I made promises and I delivered on all of those promises. 2024 is make or break. We're not getting a mulligan, no excuses. I will get the job done, and as your president, I will not let you down. God bless you all.
Yeah, whatever,
I want
bud.
to say thank you. Thank you to all the candidates on the stage tonight.
You're not going to
And
win.
Thank you to
You're
Milwaukee.
not going to be the nominee.
Thank you,
Nobody
everybody.
here is
We
going to
will
be the
see you
nominee.
on the campaign trail, from debates to primaries to the general election and the conventions before that. Thanks for joining us. Sean Hannity from the Spin Room starts right now.
Take it away, Sean.
Take it away, Sean.
All right, whatever. Well, that was...
There you go. I think they meant to say take it away
Annoying.
on Fox Nation, but oh no, there's Sean right there. He's doing his show right here, right next to us in the spin room. It's about to get real busy in here, guys, as the campaigns regroup. You see they're on the stage right now, shaking hands, waving at the crowd.
That
talking
was
to
that was
Maybe
it,
not
I
talking to
suppose.
each other all that much after a lot of those exchanges.
All right, there's 12 of
And
you
they'll regroup with their
watching.
campaign for a few moments and come in
Make
here.
yourself known
So,
in the live chat, if
I
you
wanna-
will, please.
Let's maximize our analysis right now because
What you guys think? What you guys think of the
where I'm gonna have to grab them and
the
they were
fucking?
piece. So if you guys have a question, do your best to relay it to our producers. I'll try
What
to
you guys
relay
think
it
of the
to them,
debate?
But it might have to be some solo stuff there when they come in. It's gonna be hot and heavy.
Fix this
But
properly.
winners and losers, guy, top of the card. Your takeaway,
Damn it.
2 hours, all the way down to the closing statements. Will
There we
King,
go.
Who'd you like? Who'd you not like?
Guess
And
what?
Especially looking at it through the lens
So
of
what y'all
Republican
think?
voters.
This is not going to surprise you, my friend Pete Hegseth. I have a list. Number 1.
We got
Vivek Ramaswamy. He was the biggest winner of the night. Because he was polarized. Some people think
This
he's
guy's
talking
fucking
like Tim. Some
delusional.
people think he is differentiating himself, and he is a breath of fresh
He
air.
was
but
the
people are
worst
talking about
tonight.
it. That's a win. Number 2, Tim Scott. He flew under the radar, and he's very likable. Number 3, Ron DeSantis. It's a loss for Ron DeSantis to not be number 1. Number 4,
No.
Nikki Haley. Number 5, Chris Christie. Number 6, Mike Pence, who came off defensive and angry. And the last 2, you can barely remember they were there. Doug Burgum, nice guy at 7, and Asa Hutchinson.
No,
snooze
Doug
at
Burgum
8.
was easily one of the best tonight. Like, he was really
Right,
good.
I didn't
No,
see much there
they're
on the
full of
undercard
shit.
on the
These guys are
outside.
paid off. They're paid by the
Tammy,
Vivek
your thoughts.
fucking
You don't have to list all
campaign.
8. Just give me a winner, loser.
Well, I
whatever you
think
think.
everybody-
Will's a special man.
Yeah, everybody has had an impact tonight. I have to say that I disagree with my friend Will that Doug Burgum, I think he did well. I mean, he's not, a guy that people knew, so I think he made some very good points. Mike Pence is a $3 bill. And anybody who thought that he wasn't a $3 bill, they were corrected tonight with this. It's a smug, irritated performance who is usually taking credit for someone else's work. Nikki Haley, I
Mike
think,
did
was
okay.
fine. I think she landed some punches there. Vivek, biggest revelation for me in that, yes, he irritates me. And
Yeah.
we'll see how
Yeah,
long he
understandably,
can keep up that
right?
Red Bull energy. DeSantis, yeah, he needed to really come out as strong, but we saw what we expected to see. A guy who was kind of somewhat uncomfortable, but he did relax a little bit as the debate went on. So Asa Hutchinson did not expect much. We did not get much there. Tim Scott, still a remarkable man, great story.
Don't know where
I
we're
think
listening to these
clearly we need
clowns,
to see
but,
more
like,
of him. But this
I
tells
don't know.
you that, like him or not, this
If
bench is talented.
If I had to rank each of them, I would say 1 was Chris Christie, 2 was Doug Burnham, if that's his name, 3 was Nikki Haley, 4, I guess you could give it to, I guess Ron DeSantis, 5 Tim Scott, 6 God, who else was there? I don't know. I lost track. I'm I'm kind of feeling myself.
And if you're the Republican base, you love that.
Several shots
you want
in.
real leadership. Vivek gave it. I was
I don't
looking
know,
for
who
more
won?
from Ron DeSantis. I do
I
think
mean,
he's awkward.
everybody here
He
is a
does have
fucking
challenge
loser,
with
but
that.
who won this
But
debate?
it did seem like he kind of faded off, into the bushes a little bit. Wasn't really sparkling and jumping out on stage, taking the moments to actually get engaged in the back and forth with other candidates, which is what I think you need to
Yeah, 5 Ron DeSantis, I think. No, Tim Scott. 6. Oh God, I lost it again.
with big ideas in a way that I think resonates truly with the Republican voter.
Yeah, he was bold. There's no doubt. I think.
Yeah, 6 Tim Scott. No, 5 Tim Scott. 6 Mike Pence. 7 Asa Hutchinson. 8 Ramaswamy.
Got to foreign policy on, the efficacy and January 6th and some of those issues on the efficacy of what Donald Trump accomplished. It will be very interesting. The media is going to run with the Vivek angle. Will, to your point, I think you're right. He will be the headline from this. It will be spun differently on different sides. Some will say he was aggressive and bold and clear, which he was. Others
No,
will
he
say
was a
he's
fucking
cocky
idiot.
38-year-old trying to tell everybody who's been in this business for decades how they operate. But it's not clear the reactions from the other candidates were always necessarily beneficial to them, to your point. With Mike Pence looking smug in that reaction. I'd have to rewatch that clip with him and Nikki Haley to really get a sense of who comes out on top in that exchange. I actually didn't think Tim Scott was all that great. I really like him. But I don't think he had any real standout moments. And DeSantis was fine. I think he did what he would need to do to kind of stay where he's at. But his instincts to slide back into talking points and into kind of the campaigny speak, you kind of saw a lot of that in that final closing statement. He's good when he's in, Will, to your point at the beginning of the show, when he's in a crossfire, he's really good, but it's almost like he was in the middle of the DMZ and the crossfire was going past him most of the night and he didn't have to engage in that. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Will.
Bergen.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Look, life is about expectations, and I think if you were Ron DeSantis or the Ron DeSantis campaign, you would have gone in tonight with the expectation that your candidate would come out shining as #1. And I think it's a bit of a loss that he didn't. I'm not saying he performed poorly, but I don't think he came out the big winner of the night.
No, I agree. What's the storyline tomorrow, Tammy? And I know the storylines are going to be different on different networks,
right.
And we know how that works. But what for Republican voters, which is the real target here tonight, what is the storyline, do you think?
Well, I hope it's about, again, looking to the future. I hope part of it, of course, the big issues like abortion, where the differences were there. Probably Pence to some degree, Chris Christie, right? The internecine battles when it comes to thinking about President Trump and who wants to be vice president and all of that. We know that President Trump's PACs and his machine are going to frame some of this as well. People, he's turning himself in tomorrow in Georgia. That's going to be interesting. But I think that Americans realize difficult days are ahead. And it comes down to, you want a stable genius. You want somebody who knows the issues. Not everybody is. It's not always about theater and
it's time to,
one who's got the funniest line. It's going to be who's going to know how to handle this job.
I guess it's time to take a look at what the various takes from Twitter is.
It's not going to be a pushover by the media or by the Democrat machine.
Yeah, what an interesting debate. I was looking forward to this for a minute, and it really did disappoint.
So this was the introduction.
Yeah.
And now
so
yeah,
if you're still here, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I'm happy that a handful of you decided to stick around, and it's good to see steady number of you guys actually being here and watching. Catch the next debate with me a month from now. September 27th. Like the stream if you haven't. This will be posted so you can rewatch it. I got myself a free trial of Fox Nation just to do this. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all very soon.